Okay, the time now is 6 o'clock by my phone here. I'd like to open the Halifax Board of Selectmen meeting for Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. As I said, at 6 o'clock, we are in the Great Hall, 499 Plymouth Street. This meeting has been posted in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20B, and is being recorded and live streamed and will be posted on Area 58 Community Access Channel. The board chair, which is myself, reasonably anticipates the following matters will be discussed and or voted on at this meeting, and the agenda items may be taken out of order for time management considerations, although I don't foresee that happening this evening. I would like to start the meeting how we start all our meetings. For those that can stand, join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So, a pretty simple agenda tonight. We really have one kind of overriding thing we're doing here today. We need to interview our candidates for our town administrator position. But before we get into that, let me just do our attendance here. Roll call. We have Pam McSherry, our Selectman Assistant. We have Selectman Bill Smith, Selectman Thomas Pratt, myself, Selectman Jonathan Seelig. Joining us as well from Community Paradigm is Bernie Lynch, who has helped the town of Halifax with our search. But before we get into that, we do have a small housekeeping matter to take care of on the agenda. We have a couple of appointments to the Override Study Committee that were just approved by their respective school committees, and we just need the Board of Selectmen to approve their membership into the Override Study Committee. So I'll entertain a motion to appoint Mark Helisek and Jessica Page to the Override Study Committee.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimous.
Did you read the top one?
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yep, already did. All right, so Bernie has, in addition to his duties as far as recruitment goes, screening candidates, working with our town administrator screening committee, has looked at our candidates. He will also be helping us this evening with our interviews. So our first candidate this evening is David, is it Coderre?
Coderre.
Coderre, okay. David Coderre. David, if you don't mind coming down and having a seat. And before, come on up, we'll shake your hand. Nice to meet you. Don't have to be so official.
Top. Nice to meet you. Pleasure.
Yeah. And yeah, and have a seat there. Bernie has graciously decided to kind of oversee these proceedings here, Bernie. So I know you have some questions, and the rest of the board can chime in if they touch a topic that you guys want to discuss. Feel free to add to that.
Okay.
Bernie, take it away.
Great, thank you. David, thank you again for applying for the position and also for taking the time to meet with the screening committee to go through that process. Obviously, the result of that was that you were chosen to move forward to this process. And in the meantime, you were very cooperative in getting us your some reference information so we could talk to some people that know you and know your work, so that would help us get a better sense of who you are for the board, so that they've had an opportunity to review all of that. But with all of that said, I think it would be great if we could hear from you a little bit about yourself, sort of what drives you to want a position like this, and why specifically Halifax?
Sure. Well, thank you again for having me here. And I apologize to anyone in the crowd that's already heard a lot of this speech already, so a lot of these words. Who am I? Well, I'm an executive who's had a pretty broad range of experiences throughout my career. I've done everything from started back in the day as a floor trader and a commodities exchange, which those don't really exist anymore because technology has taken them away. I've been in banking. I've owned my own business for 10 years, and most recently, I've served at the Worcester Housing Authority as the Vice President of Procurement. So, and in a cover letter that I wrote to Bernie's organization, one of the things you realize as you're doing in your career is that I've also had a parallel career in municipal government. Unfortunately, I haven't really gotten paid for that. I started about 20 years ago as a selectman elected in the town of Putnam for a couple of terms. And then I've served on the Board of Finance in town for the last 7 years as the chairman of the Board of Finance. I've been very involved in other committees and things like that. One of the big ones I'm proud of that I spoke of was a municipal building committee where we built in Putnam a $20 million municipal complex. Believe it or not, our town hall was from 1878, and it was finally time to put everything under one building, so we did that, and I was the vice chairman of that. And we built that on time and under budget. So a long story short is after realizing that how much I enjoyed the time I was serving my community and in municipal government and all those aspects of it, I took the time to reflect and say, well, why wouldn't I try and make a career out of that? And so I started looking into options of possibilities exactly like this position. This was one of the first ones I saw. It fits in very many ways, which I won't go too far because it'll probably be follow-up questions, but as I spoke the first time, it's a community that's much like northeastern Connecticut where I am, and maybe not exactly just like Putnam, because Putnam tends to be more maybe a little on the lines of Bridgewater, where there's more commercial, industrial, and a downtown, but the towns immediately around that, Woodstock, Connecticut, Pomfret, Connecticut, are definitely communities very, very similar to Halifax. So the comfort level is there. As I researched the position in the thorough description, I will say that if you saw my highlights in here, out of every 10 things, I probably have 9 that are absolutely highlighted as an area I feel like I have expertise in. And so the fit for all those reasons just felt really good to me, and that's why I chose to pursue it. And fortunately, I struck up a great conversation with Bernie and his people, and then fortunately, my interview with the screening committee went very well as well. So I'm back here again, and that's the 2-minute version, I guess, of
That's
how
good.
I got where I am today.
All right, great, thank you. Just a couple of points that you do hold an MBA from DePaul and a bachelor's degree from the University of Notre Dame in finance and business economics. Correct. All right, so that's going to be my lead into the next topic, and that is your experience with budgeting. Could you walk us through, your understanding of municipal finance here, particularly here in Massachusetts, under Proposition 2.5, and how you would go about working on the town's budget?
Sure. So I think if you do review my resume, it's 40 years of finance in one way or another. As I mentioned, starting on a commodities exchange, and then in banking, and then running my own business, and serving as a chair in a municipal government of the Board of Finance. So I believe budgeting, one of the things I feel about municipal government, and the reason that I think I could be a good fit for it, is one of the weaknesses, I think, is the people who serve necessarily in the professional roles sometimes grow up in it and don't have the outside business perspective. So that's where I think my strength is. I think I bring a level of outside business acumen to a position like helping with the finance in a town and a town administrator role. What do I mean by that is, for instance, in Putnam, where I'm chairman of the Board of Finance, I find that our administration sometimes feels like we can do whatever we want because ultimately everybody has to pay the bill. The taxpayer has to pay the bill. But when you talk to the people in a town, that's not the way they feel about it. They know they have to pay the bill, but they want it to be efficient. And so I've always said we should run our towns a little bit more like a business. Now, we have to provide a service and we have to do it. And really, our customers are our taxpayers and our property owners and the people who live here. So that's the way I approach finance. And it doesn't matter if it's in Connecticut or Massachusetts or wherever. It all comes down to the same thing. How much money do we have in revenue and how much money are we going to spend? And in municipal government, almost goes a little bit the other way. How much do we have to spend in order to raise that revenue? And so I think my eye is a sharper eye towards how do we have a lean, efficient budget that operates like it would when I ran my business for 10 years and I knew I had to make payroll and I had to keep people on that and their checks had to be ready for them on Friday and my customers had to be happy that we were providing a service. So I bring that sort of attitude and perspective towards budgeting and finance in the municipal side.
Can I to kind of sidebar on that, I'm sure at your time in Putnam you've had you've had lean years and you have great years financially. We here in Halifax, all things on the table. We're looking at a tough financial year coming up, as are most of the communities here in Massachusetts. Do you kind of share with us an experience where you had a sizable hole budgetarily, and what your approach was to work on filling that hole?
So one thing I'll say is, in the years I've served in town, I don't know if there's ever been a year where everybody says it's going to be an easy budget.
It's a great year, right? Correct. Yeah.
It's always hard. One of the things I've always done as the chairman is had a few arrows in the quiver. And what I mean is, there's always some ways to get a little bit creative. I saw some of those in minutes and research and items I was reading about Halifax, where you tried to go into what you called it the free cash, I think. In Putnam, we call it the undesignated reserves, similar to that. So there's been times where we've had to dig into those at certain times as the chairman of the Board of Finance and use those to offset, really cut into that tax bill that would go right. And we try to take it, we've taken off as much as $1 million at a time, right? So right off the top of the bat. So we've cut. We've had years where everybody came in wanting everything, and we've just said it's going to be a cut. And first of all, we say right off the top, everybody's going to get a little cut, even down to, we have a library that has a separate budget that has $400,000, and we said, just so we make this representative, we got to cut $4,000 or $5,000 out of your budget. You know, I mean, not really materially significant to a $30 million budget, but we attacked it across the board. As I mentioned the last time I was here, in Connecticut, you have line item ability for the actual town services. So on the mayor's budget, you could literally cut a line item. You could say you're not going to buy that truck for the highway department this year. Yeah. Now, on the Board of Education side, which I know here, the Board of Education takes about 51% of your budget. In ours, it's at about 2/3. There, we can cut their number, but we cannot cut their line item because that's their area of expertise.
Same here. Same here.
So I've always felt like that's why the superintendent's one of the most highest paid people in the town, because they went to school for it. They know how to handle those budgets. We're not here to tell them how to handle special education, all those other things that are drivers of their expenses. But we have said we're trying to put a bigger picture together at the end, and part of that's the education, parts the town, parts the library, all those things come together. And then the other side is we represent the taxpayers. So we're trying to make a big picture decision there. And so if it means we have to say to the Board of Ed, we need to cut your request $300,000, that's what we did. $200,000 from the mayor's budget and $5,000 from the library, something like that. So I've always tried to take it more in a full 36,000 foot view where it's comprehensive for the entire budget, rather than just dig in and cause trouble or really pick on one area and try and identify that. One of the things I've found is when you keep the parents and the teachers in that community happy, kind of makes your budget process go a little easier sometimes.
Okay.
A couple of questions on that. When you were explaining your use of undesignated fund balance, and it is very similar to free cash. Free cash is a uniquely Massachusetts concept and term. It's not free and it's not cash, but it's a term that's given to it. How have you used the undesignated fund balance? Have you used that to reduce the
tax burden?
The tax burden.
So, yep.
Do you see any? Are there any issues of concern related to doing that in your mind?
Absolutely, there is. So our auditors have always said that best practice is about 2.5 months of operating funds should be in our reserves. Beyond that is what we call the undesignated. That's actually available for use. So, for instance, we've had about $4 million at our disposal many years. As just undesignated, we could use it. Now, two problems. When we use $500, $600, $7,000 to bite right into that of free cash. Next year, when you start off again, that money's got to come out of your formula. Every year, I go to the public hearing as the chair. I take a piece of paper and I do my math. It's like on the back of a napkin, and I say, "This is where we're starting with, folks. We're down $700,000 because we used that last year. Board of Ed wants $1 million, and the mayor wants another $200. So it's $1.9 million right there we got to find." And that's just the basic way to do it, right? You could be Warren Buffett, but you got to show them what the number is. So the problem with using free cash is that next year, that's where you start in the hole. Now, we've been fortunate because of interest rates and things like that, that our revenue projections have come in higher for many of the years at the end of the year. So many years when we said we're applying $500, $600, or $700,000, we've ended up having a surplus in the budget of some of that number. So for instance, if we use 600, but we came in 600 that year, well, we really never touched it. Now, back to Bernie's question, the big problem is the year you start using that, 600,000 a year goes away really quick. And every year, your operating expenses get higher, so that 2.5 months is a bigger number. So until you're increasing that undesignated reserve free cash, you're starting to chop into it. So those are the two big problems I see with that. Now, if you have strong, good departments that run really good budgets and you can kind of say you're conservative in your budgeting and you think that you can have a surplus in there, then you can probably use it with a little degree of confidence that you're not going to tap into the whole thing.
Okay.
Can I ask real quick? Yeah. So full cards on the table here, David. In addition to I won't say tough, but a challenging financial year coming up, we also have 5 of our 6 unions that need contracts this year. What is your experience with contract negotiations, sitting in the chair and working through the contract process with unions?
So directly, I have not. I've been the next step out as the chair of the Board of Finance, dealing with them and how we're going to do that, deal with them in the budget. Because sometimes we've gone into a budget where we don't know. So we've had to use contingency funds, and we've kind of had to put placeholders in there. As far as the negotiations themselves, listen, I feel like that's where it comes back to, I think I mentioned this first time, if I was 32 years old, I probably wouldn't be able to step into a role like this because I didn't have the all-around experience. But even though couldn't say I've sat in one side and the union sat on the other side right now, I think that goes to 40 years of business experience and dealing with your own employees, whether they're union or not, and dealing with customers and dealing with the taxpayers. So I think that's the way negotiations have to go. And I think if you negotiate in good faith, you can get those things done, because I would imagine that the people who make up the union that you're going to negotiate with, many of them are citizens of the town or live nearby, and nobody's oblivious to the situations that everybody's going on, because they may very well be on that union side, but then they're also taxpayers who know that it affects their bill on the other side of that. So I have no fear of that, but I can't tell you, if I said 9 out of 10, that'd be maybe the one that I didn't have the direct experience with.
We got him.
Yeah, good.
So, let me, in terms of still sticking with finance, what experience do you have in the area of grants and obtaining grants and grant management?
Yeah.
So obtaining them is not something that I've actually worked on directly. As I mentioned when we talked about this last time, finding grants, I think, is a matter of not reinventing the wheel. I know there are resources out there. Bernie, I hate to tell you, but I know with your background that should I get this role, you probably would be in my Rolodex and I'd be making some phone calls to you. So, and I know there's other resources. So I think it's a matter of doing some legwork and getting out there and looking for them. I do believe it's one of those areas where artificial intelligence is actually something that's really good for us, because I think we can put it to use as a tool to find those things. And I know just in the research I've been doing, I've seen a lot more of it. I know in Putnam on our capital budget, which may or may not be another question, we do a 5-year capital budget, and the budget for that year is the only one that's really held, and we financed it usually completely through non-tax funds, so grants, state programs, all those kind of things.
Okay. That was my next question, actually. Was capital budgeting. It's sort of the third leg here of the financial, of the town's finances. But what's the approach that you would use? Because there's always large capital projects that need to be taken on. What's the approach that you use in determining whether to recommend the capital budget, for instance, in Putnam, or to put that forth? So
I think capital budgeting needs to be a little bit like the way you treat your household, right? I have a bathroom that's getting old, and I think that someday I need to put a new bathroom on my house, and I know it's going to be a capital project for me. I have to start saving down the road for that to know that I can handle that and how I'm going to finance that and how I'm going to do it. So my experience with it is in municipal government is we do a 5-year capital program that gets approved every year. Only the year of that current year is the one that's actually followed through on, per se. The rest is for planning purposes. So, like I said, we find a way through grants, state programs, or having applied certain funds we have in other places to handle that year's annual capital expenses. And if we know we have certain ones that we have to renew, for instance, we have to do revaluations every 5 year in Connecticut of property. So we set that money aside in those 5-year increments every year towards that, so we're ready to go. So I think it's a matter of planning, just to see what the long-range projects are that we have. That way we're ready, and at the same time, I'm sure there's a contingency, there's some sort of emergency funds, right? Go back to my homeowner example. We may have great plans for that bathroom down the road, but the furnace might blow out in the year we weren't expecting it, and that's capital improvement we got to take care of as well. So got to have those two thought processes. How do we handle short-term needs, and how do we look forward for the 5 years or more that we need to do major projects?
Okay. Yeah, a number of, you mentioned, the undesignated fund balance again in Putnam, and your experience there, free cash here that's certified. It's probably sometime in early fall that as a result of the closeout on June 30th. Many communities take some of that free cash, and I can't recall how we do it here in Halifax, but they take a portion of that and put it into a stabilization fund, a savings fund, that then could be put towards capital or other items. Similar sort of concepts. If you could talk to us about your management style. In addition to the nuts and bolts of handling the finances, let's stick with this, of handling finances, there's the whole aspect of town administrator of dealing with the organization, dealing with the community. Talk to us about what your management style or leadership style would look like.
So, first and foremost is I actually do believe that I'm a leader. And I say that because you need to be able to take that responsibility, and you need to be able to run the organization. And I think that's the exact definition of town administrator in Halifax. I see your board kind of similar to a board of directors of a corporation, and you've hired a town administrator to be your president and CEO is sort of the way I see it. So that person needs to be able to stand up and lead. And a great example of that is I've coached girls softball in a high school for a few years, and when I started coaching, people said you can't coach the kids like we used to get coached when we were young. And I said, that's kind of baloney. Like, we might not be able to yell at them like some of our coaches did, but at the end of the day, when things go wrong on the field or in a town, people want to turn and look to someone and say, they've got our back and they know what they're doing and they're the expert in this situation and they're going to take care of it. They're a leader and they're going to make sure things get done. That's the kind of person and the kind of leadership that I provide. I always have, whether it's in a bank or in my own business or now at the Worcester Housing Authority. This is my department. I've got it. This is my company. I've got it. Things don't always go perfectly. Let's figure them out. How do I do that? I'm very hands-on and I'm very collaborative. Now, don't take hands-on as a micromanager. I am not a micromanager. I don't believe in that. Other people are experts. The highway department, gentlemen, is the expert. Chief of police is the expert. The fire chief is the expert. Superintendent of the schools, or whatever it may be, is the expert. But that doesn't mean you can't have your hands on there to learn what they do, to understand what they do, and be a resource for them. That they can come to you and say, we got an issue. How do we start working on this? Let's all put our heads together and get together, and that's collaborative.
Just to kind of dovetail on that in leadership, part of your duties will include HR, experience with human resources, and maybe how you approach HR as well as part of this role.
So I've always been an indirect HR, right? Like right now I have an HR department and I have union employees, so we tread lightly and I make sure HR knows everything that I'm doing so that I'm not breaking any rules or violating anything like that. When I ran my own business, I was the HR department as well, so I handle all that. I believe that's communication and understanding what the rules are, playing by them, and making sure that we're following all those, which, especially in this day and age, we want to make sure we've got our T's crossed and our I's dotted. But again, I think that's something that you either can tap a resource every now and then if you need to. Otherwise, it goes back to 40 years of general experience working with people as far as how do you handle people. And that also dovetails into your leadership question, right? So leadership and HR kind of are together in that. If we can head off some problems, then I think we've handled some of the HR issues right there. But I do believe that there are people that are experts in certain things for a reason, and so if an issue is more complicated than my background serves, we certainly have to just reach out to make sure we get advice that we're handling things properly in that way.
Thank you.
I'm not going to say it's somewhat related. Again, it's another nuts and bolts type of activity, though, of the town administrator, in addition to managing the people through the HR, leading the organization, certainly the budgeting part of it. Right in Halifax, one of the issues that the town's always been concerned with is that the person have an understanding and the background to do procurement and to manage projects. I can't recall, I believe we talked about this. Are you MCPPO certified?
I am on my way there. I've taken some of the classes. I don't have them all, so I do not have that yet. But
Okay.
I am the Chief Procurement Officer at
Right.
Worcester Housing Authority right now.
Right.
So I 30B, 7A, 149 are all charts and rules I live by right now. So that's my
Okay.
life.
Right, that's what I knew your role at Worcester, but I wasn't sure. I didn't see it anywhere about the
and we
MCPPO.
recently tallied our last year, and I think fiscal year, I did approaching 60 contracts, and it was $55 million in contracts. So
Yeah. Okay.
that's my life right now. So yes, have the procurement background.
Okay, good. Moving into, I guess, more of a soft skill again, back up to, but tied in with leadership. The town is very committed to customer service and transparency with its local government activities and delivery of services. What do you think you would bring to help the town town government build its relations with the residents and ensure that there's trust in what local government does?
So I think we get in trouble when we don't tell people everything that's going on. So what does that mean? Does that mean they're going to be the first to know? Maybe not, because sometimes we need to get things lined up behind the scene and make sure that we don't want to bring every idea and get the rumor mill started every time. But that being said, when we are pursuing something and we have plans and we have goals, the town should know those. The people should know those, because they really are our customers. You just said it. I've said it before. They pay the bills. They deserve that. They deserve that transparency. Quite honestly, I think getting that feedback early on, the feel of the town. I know there's some large issues going on here in Halifax. We talked about them the last time I was here, and I think it's getting the temperature of which way the crowd wants to go. Is that every single time the way we're really going to end up going? Maybe not, but maybe that tells us that we need to do a marketing campaign. I'll go back to the municipal complex we built. We built it with our own funds. Out of $20 million, we got a $1 million grant because the library was part of it. $19 million came from the taxpayers themselves, largest project ever funded. The initial reaction, everyone, why can't we just fix the old town hall? I know you guys did that here many years ago. We couldn't. But that took a marketing campaign. It took a series of town hall meetings to get out to the public and let them know what we were doing. And then slowly you got people on board who realized, yes, this is something we need to do. Just an example. You got to be out there. People need to know who you are. It's the same as your department's heads. You need to be at events. You need to be at town functions. People need to know who you are, not the man behind the curtain that no one ever sees. So just like the three of you are all strong members of your community, this town administrator role has to be out in the front of the community on a daily basis, being seen. Maybe not with a shovel in their hand with the highway crew, but maybe at the side of something when something goes wrong and we need to figure out how to fix it. Hey, Dave's out there. He's working on it. Everybody's putting their heads together.
Okay. I'm going to use that as a segue to talk about something that I think we talked about the screening committee, but obviously it's a concern that the board is going to have as well. You live in Putnam, Connecticut. It's a long ride to Halifax. how do you stay engaged with the community the way you described, and and it's a very time-consuming job. How do you deal with the issue of night meetings, early morning meetings, et cetera, and being here?
So it's this is going to be the same answer I gave last time. It's a 3-part relocation plan. So it's initially, if you got to actually drive for a few days or a couple of weeks, that's just putting in the drive time. I know the hours. The hours make it 1 hour and 30-minute drive time because you're really early and you're a little later, so you're not really going to get stuck in too much traffic. That's not a problem. After that, it's finding a place to land on a more semi-permanent basis. So I think the work schedule, again, as I saw, was Monday through Thursday. I think Fridays the town hall is closed, if I'm correct. So, that can be being here on Monday morning when the clock strikes 7 a.m., and then, being able to get out of town Thursday after everything's wrapped up. So that could be a hotel or an apartment, things like that, just somewhere to have. I call that phase 2 of the relocation. And phase 3 is when everybody likes me and I like you and we're all here and I know that I found my home, that this is a place I can relocate to.
I had a question on that.
Sure, go ahead.
Just to dovetail. What's the long-term plan? Is the hope to be a town administrator here or somewhere for 2 terms, 10 years, or
So
3, 6, 9? What's what's the vision?
So I'm 59 years old.
Okay.
My dad's 84, and I tell you that because he still goes into his little office as a consultant for his own business just about every day. And so I don't see myself looking at the golf course and retiring anytime soon. It's never been a real thing of mine. I know I have some friends that are thinking about that already. I've got a solid 10 years in me, and that could be a little longer. Of course, at that point, I may be a different person, or the positions may be different and warrant a different type of person as well. But I've got 10 years in me. I would love to commit 10 years and do that sort of finish. Takes me up to a great level. If you need a little more than that, you see how that goes. But basically, I'm in that 10 to 15 year range on myself of actually having a real career and a position on a daily basis.
Okay. The reason I was asking, specifically, I don't expect you to be able to foretell the future. I think it'd be beneficial to the town in a lot of ways to have an even hand and some stability. I don't know that we're necessarily looking at a candidate in general to be here for short term, or I don't want to say use us as a stepping stone, but I think the plan would be to have some stability in that office for a period of time. If it lined up that you wanted to be here and we wanted to have you, or whoever the candidate might be. So that's why I asked the question. So thank you.
You mentioned the role of the town administrator, and then you talked about the board and what you saw them as a board of directors, I think you described. What do you envision, how will you work to have a successful relationship with the board so that there's working in tandem? How does that happen?
So I think it's very similar to how you keep it with the people of the town and the citizens. I think there needs to be an open door policy, and it probably just needs to be a more regularly scheduled one. I don't know the current 3 of you, what your schedules are, if you work in town, things like that, how easy it is for you. But again, it'd be one of those situations where we want to maintain contact on a very regular basis. I know there's meetings twice a month for the Board of Selectmen. Obviously, you want to be up to date on those, but nothing should certainly be a surprise to this board. This board should be in on everything along the way, and I think when large decisions are coming along, it's much like if you truly were in a business, you would be calling some of the members of the board of directors and saying, we've got this going on, I'm just trying to give you a heads up, we're trying to take care of it, and this is the direction I think we're going in, and try and get the input and make sure that everybody's on the same page as far as that goes. Not weighing you down with the everyday, but those things that are going to come up that make a difference in the town and how we're going to handle them, and making sure that everybody's happy so it's not a problem that we have to deal with twice a month, but we're taking care of them. Putting out the fire before it starts rather than putting it out at a meeting, on a selectmen's meeting on a Tuesday night.
I hope this isn't a squirmy question, but I'm going to throw it out there. I think the legendary literary mind, Mike Tyson, has this quote, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? Could you share with us an experience that you've had where you thought you had a plan squared away, you thought things were going to go one way, and something went differently, and how you were able to, this position you need to be a little bit light on your feet, how you were able to deal with a situation you didn't foresee coming, and how you're able to work your way out of it?
Sure. I mean, that's, adapt and move on, right? That's every day that happens. Even my latest role right now, I said we're doing contracts every day. Maybe we get an RFP that comes in completely off base, right? How do we handle that? Those things aren't life and death. We can figure those out and get those. I would say owning my own business, you take it over, you get these grand ideas, you're going to do this, this, and this, and the next thing you know, growth hasn't been there as much as you want. So how do you handle that? Do you lay people off? Do you figure out a situation? So, for instance, in my business, I didn't have a ton of employees. I was able to pare it down and just keep a couple. I was fortunate to have people who was like sort of part-time, retirees, that kind of thing. And then I was able to figure out a way, listen, I know there's certain times a year that we get very busy. Let's bring them in and do that work. So rather than thinking, hey, I'm going to have a full-time force of 5 or 6 people that I've got to keep in the payroll all the time, was like, how do I keep 1 or 2 busy all the time and have that ability to still service my customers when the time came? A lot of this goes back to, I mentioned it, and I sort of sound like a dinosaur now because people don't even understand what floor trading is anymore. It was 1990 when I started, and I was 22 years old. And that was standing up all day and making split-second decisions on your own. And when I say split second, I say split second. And one of the things I always remember is the trading floor closed one day after the bell, and all of a sudden there was a group of Marines over in one of the trading pits, and we all said, what are they doing over there? Well, they brought the Marines in to teach them trading because they thought that the skills we had developed as split-second decision makers, balancing risk and reward all the time, played off just as well with officers in the Marines and would help them when the stuff hit the fan and they had to make quick decisions. So I always took that and said, sort of source of pride in that, you had to make decisions that cost you tens of thousands of dollars on a continuous basis every day. So I think I started back then with the whole decision-making process, and one of the things I feel like I've gotten to a point is some people didn't succeed in trading because we called it paralysis by analysis, and they may have been very much smarter than I was, but maybe I was just dumb enough to make a decision, and most of the time they turned out right. And sometimes we need to just do the pros and cons in our head or on paper or with other people, and then say we're making this plan or moving forward, and maybe it requires more adaptation down the road. One time in MBA school I had a professor who said there's never really a wrong decision. You make the best decision at the time you can with the facts you have in front of you. As long as you did that, you can good conscience can say we went this way and we had a good reason we're doing it. If it didn't work, we need to adjust and adapt and go in a different direction along that way.
Thank you. Anything else?
I had a couple things circling back. I don't know, Bill, do you want to?
Now we have to.
I forgot to mention in your 3-phase plan, we meet twice a month officially. I've only been a Board of Selectmen for about 18 months, so I've only had, besides our interim town administrator, one example. One of his strengths, I thought, was his attendance and availability at other meetings. So given your plan, phase 2 of temporarily relocating, being here, quote unquote, Sunday through Thursday, if the planning board or the finance committee or...
Absolutely, that's part of the job.
You envision that being...
That's part of the job.
And then, I don't know if we'll get there eventually, but start date, if things lined up, when would we...
That would simply be a matter of professionalism and making sure that I made the handoff in my job.
Okay.
And I've played it out in my head. Probably mid-January is sort of what I'm looking at right now, depending on how quickly things move.
And then to dovetail on that, David, you're very involved in your community. How do you foresee that shaking out as far as being able to, will that balance shift? What's your plan there?
Yes, absolutely. So I was asked that in the screening, and ultimately, actually good timing, because there has been a little bit of a shift in the politics. So I probably very well will not be the chairman anymore of the Board of Finance, because we have it by parties. So our party is in the minority now. So there's a good chance I won't be the chair anymore, which sort of works in a way. In the very short term, I would probably just maintain that for a few meetings. but eventually I just have to resign that position. I'm in the last 2 years of a 4-year term, so I would be out of that at that point.
I just have a couple questions. Under our management style, can you give us a couple of examples of conflict resolution with people, employees of the town and citizens?
So, one of the things I find with citizens is that they want to be heard. And so I've had great experiences. I tell people, I been at a stoplight one time in town, and I had a guy roll his window down. I saw him looking at me, and he's like, "Great job holding their feet to the fire." Literally. And I was like, okay, thanks, Then you have other people who say, why did you vote for that? How do you feel about that? And one of the things I've done, and I've actually held our administration's feet to the fire when they haven't presented us enough information, I feel like if I make a decision, I need to be able to back that up with the taxpayer and the people who voted me in and that I'm representing. So if they come to me and say, I don't like the way you voted, I need to be able to tell them why I did that. And if they still don't want to agree with me, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. But I think you owe them that level of, here's why I support that. Not because the mayor asked me to or somebody else on the Board of Finance asked me to. It's because I believe this is the best way for the town, and this is my reasons. And again, it goes back to, are we right or wrong? We're not always right. But I'm going to give you the real reason that I can tell you I did that. And I find that sometimes, again, we're putting out the fire before it starts by being upfront with them, giving them an answer like that, rather than getting into that argument of trying to say why I'm right as opposed to they're wrong. If we tell them why I think I'm right, they have the right to decide if they agree with me or not. And hopefully we can have a mutual respect and understand why we did what we did.
Could I have a follow-up though to that? In terms of the issue of conflict resolution, though, I think what usually is sort of thought of as an example of that in a municipality is two sides of an issue, and they each have their reason for holding that position, and the town government, be it the board or a department head, or in most cases, sort of on a day-to-day basis, ends up on the desk of the town administrator, that they have to sort of deal with a problem that's happening between two employees, between two neighbors, between two businesses, whatever the case may be. Do you have an example of something like that you've worked on that would tell us how you would go about resolving that conflict?
Well, I think you have that in employees very often. I can go back to being very young and having, as a trader, and having clerks who were only a year or two younger than me, and of course sometimes people don't get along, and trying to get them together when you had something like that. And that continues to this day in an organization where you have multiple people working in a warehouse and things like that, and trying to see the same, get them to maybe not necessarily agree on something, but agree that we're going to move forward in a certain direction. So, I don't know, Bernie, that I can say to you, oh, I had this person do that, but it really goes back to, I'm just kind of a common sense person who isn't afraid to be in front of an issue and try and help resolve it. And, my 3 kids keep popping into my head, right? Like, yeah. It's not always a lot different than trying to resolve conflict with anyone. So I think it is about what you said. Sometimes there's there's always 3 sides, right? One side, the other, and then the somewhere in the middle. And I think it's trying to get both parties to understand that you took a look at their side and listened. Okay. I gave an example in leadership before of a president of a bank that mentored me into banking, and one of the things to this day that I super appreciate is that he'd let me come in, give my side of a story of an issue that was going on. I wouldn't drop it on his desk, but I might say, his name was Dave as well, Dave, we got this. How do you want to handle it? I said, well, there's a couple ways. I think this is the way I'd like to take it. Listen to me, and then say, here's how I think we got to go. It wasn't always the way I wanted to go because he had the responsibility, but I appreciated that he listened to me. And I think when you have conflict resolution, half the battle, again, is listening to people and making them feel like you heard their side of the story, whether they ultimately went their way or not.
I get really quick. I know it's tight, but so I don't know how they do it, Dave, in Connecticut, but pardon me. one of the main charges that a town administrator has is getting things prepared and ready for our annual town meeting. That is, I would say, one of the most important parts of the position. Familiarity with the town meeting system here in Massachusetts, and your ability to be comfortable presenting to hundreds of residents, sometimes very passionate residents, making clear, concise presentations as to, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, kind of.
So I'm going to answer the second part first,
Yeah,
and
go
then
ahead.
that's the easy part. As you might have noticed, I can talk.
That's
when
good.
I-
Talking is a plus.
And as chairman of the Board of Finance, we always have a public hearing before our annual meeting for the public to attack the Board of Finance for the budget they are presenting.
Yep.
I've been the face of that. And like I said, I literally either throw it on a screen or a piece of paper and say, here's how I got here. And I don't know if everybody follows me on it, but I give them that, and then they ask questions. No problem getting out in front of that. I always can handle myself in that regard. I think that's the real easy part. No issue with that. I did do research on your town meeting. The difference between your town meeting is your warrant is tremendously detailed compared to a town meeting in Putnam, where basically we have 3 or 4 items as the call of the meeting, and they're voted on. It's basically just the budget at that point. And it can get tense, and it can go on for a while because people are allowed to come up and speak, same as yours, all that. I did have a chuckle with the screening committee in that the last one went to, yours started at 6 and went to 11 p.m.
And that was an easy one.
That was an easy one? And then I saw the warrant. So not a super familiarity with that, but it's just that you do a lot more level of detail in your annual town meeting than we do in Connecticut. So it's more about just taking care of the budget in that meeting and any other. We have multiple town meetings, obviously. When something comes up to do those, as they come along, they get a call for a meeting. And again, I thought about what are my weaknesses or what don't I know here, and it's no different than anything I've done in my career, and I'm sure everybody else. Wherever you started in the position you're in right now, you might not have really known anything about certain aspects of it, and you learn, right? And that's one of the things is when I bought my business with military spec packaging and shipping, I didn't know anything about that. I sat next to a lady for a month, and she gave me a row of books in a bookcase, and years later, I was an expert in military packaging and shipping. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Everything's here in the town hall. Bernie's sitting right there. So when you have those questions, but there's societies and there's organizations that other administrators, I know, I've seen who you've had and things like that. I'm sure there's resources. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's one of my leadership. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. If somebody already knows how to do it, let's just go see how they do it, and we can just adapt it to ours.
Thank you. I guess questions for us?
Do you have any questions for the board?
They aren't really much different. I had asked a few questions at the screening committee about, having a few large issues. I know the Prop 2.5 and looking for the override. I do feel like budgeting would be probably job one when you get in here. I mean, you're probably already a little late starting in mid-January. I'm sure the interim is probably working on that right now. So that's a thing you'd have to jump into right away. Some of those other issues as far as the MBTA Act, obviously still hanging out there, and that's one that, again, I see you'd have to get the temperature of the town to kind of get a feel for what it is right now, but I don't know if that's going to change or not. And then you go, it's hot, right?
Don't put your hand on it too long.
And it's funny because I'm in the housing industry. I was kind of familiar with it before. So just those things. And I don't know if they're questions as much as I see that those are big issues that I would probably need more guidance to get started on, and just to see, like, it's one of those things, you've got to immerse yourself in the culture first. Before nobody comes in. You can't come in like a bull in a china closet and say, yeah, this is what we're doing now. You hired me. We're gonna go to that MBTA community. No, buddy, that's not why we hired you. You got to come in and figure out what's going on first.
Yep, and I would argue that the eternal struggle of this town, or one of the major ones, is people love our small town feel, but hate our high tax rate. So there's that balance of having growth, but not losing the small town charm that is Halifax. So that, if you are to get that position, that is the struggle that's been going on since the dawn of time here in Halifax.
And that's the universal struggle. That's one of the reasons, good or bad, I knew the comfort level here, because that's the same thing you see in all the same kind of small towns, whether it's Connecticut or Massachusetts. It's the same mindset. I won't say attitude, it's the same mindset. And, you know, you need to figure out the best way to handle that. You're not gonna change the mindset. Nobody wants to pay taxes, but everybody wants their services. So it's that fine line that we balance in providing those and telling them that this is what it's gonna cost, but you can trust us and we can show you this is what it takes to do that. And there's no fat in the budget, and we're taking things the way they need to be done. And everybody wants a good town. It's a town that the property values have gone up. It's a lovely community to visit, so I think they want to maintain that.
Great.
That's it.
I think so.
We're all set. David, thank you very much.
Thank you, David.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
And David, just so you know on timeline, we do hope to make a decision this evening.
Oh,
So
okay.
we won't leave folks dangling. You will find out one way or the other this evening.
Perfect. Thank you again.
Thank you
very
for
much.
coming in. Yep, thank you. You all right? So yeah, we're still on. So our next candidate doesn't come in until 7. So we have a little bit of time. Tell you what, I will call for a quick bathroom break. I know I could use the facilities right now, and we will resume, let's say at 3 of 7. Okay?
Sounds good.
Sound good?
For the town administrator position, do you want to say anything to start? Or?
No. Well, first off, thanks for coming. Thanks for submitting your application and going through our screening process. You probably see some familiar faces in the crowd here. We're excited. We're a little bit in a crossroads here where we've had an interim town administrator for a while, since about June. And we're looking forward to getting somebody in the seat that is a little bit more thinking of down the road and kind of longer term stuff for Halifax.
Understood.
So, I appreciate you coming in and sharing what you're all about.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Bernie, if you want, I can just say, a little bit about yourself and why Halifax.
All right, sure. That sounds good.
Is that easy?
Don't
All
take my job.
That's it. Here, I'll just push him right out of the way.
Sounds good.
So I have kind of an interesting background, right? And I'm sure you've seen my resume, and sort of had a dual track career, I'd say, for the last 10 years. So 15 plus years in global technology, right? Working for companies like Dell, VMware, Red Hat, EMC, leading global strategic initiatives, working very closely with partners, building multi-year, 5-year, sometimes billion-dollar business plans with partners like Lenovo and partners like Ernst & Young. I've managed highly cross-functional teams, global teams, just really have a strong financial background from my experience in the business world. MBA from Babson. In terms of my municipal experience, like I talked about the dual-prong career, or the dual-track career, the last 10 years in the town of North Attleboro, I've had a lot of different roles in municipal government. I'd say I've probably had 20 years of experience in municipal government in the last 10, just based on all the change that we've gone through. Like we've had to pass an override, we've had to build a new high school, we've dealt with the PFAS issue. It's been like a trial by fire for the last 10 years, but we've had a lot of success. I started out on the finance committee in my town of North Attleboro. It's actually been in my bones, I'd say my whole adult life, going back to when I grew up in a town called Groveland, Massachusetts, a small town like Halifax. I actually was on the finance committee there, and I was 22, 23 years old. So this has been a part of my life for a long time. And so, like I said, my experience, I could talk more about it over the course of the interview. But I was a member of the finance committee, a member of representative town meeting in our old form of government, ultimately became a member of the board of selectmen, and when I served in that capacity for a year. Our government transformed to a town council, town manager form of government at that point, and I was the first vice president and also the chair of the finance committee in that new form of government. So really had to kind of build the budget approval process from scratch, effectively, when that new form of government took shape. I've been a member of, and I am a member of the Massachusetts School Building Committee in our town, so that's still an ongoing commitment. I am a member of the school committee by virtue of the fact that the town council president, which I am now and have been for the last 3 terms, is also an ex officio school committee member. So I have a depth and breadth of experience in town government. I've been in your seats. I really know I feel like I understand and what I would be looking for out of a town administrator, what I value in a town administrator, and for me that's just helping you to get stuff done. Like you want someone who's going to execute your vision, you can trust, you can rely on to get stuff done, and that's really what I've always valued, and that's what I am looking forward to bringing to the table. So I'll stop there. I could go on for a little bit longer, but I think that's probably good for starters.
Okay.
Good. Let's talk about, you mentioned your management of cross-functional teams, and obviously you've been a public official in the town of North Attleboro, so I'm interested in hearing about sort of, you can combine everything, I guess, into this, of what your management style is and what your leadership style is. And is there a difference, how you look at those two styles?
There certainly is. There certainly is. And I think my style in general is really to kind of treat people squarely. When I meet you the first time, I give you the benefit of the doubt, right? And that's how I treat everybody. And then you're going to prove to me one way or the other. Right? Maybe my opinion will change over time. But when I first meet an employee, when I first meet a peer, when I first meet a manager, that's always my open book, right? Clean slate, and we go from there. I talk about a consultative leadership style. A lot of people will talk about that. I think that's important in a town administrator type of role. Just really being able to listen, right? Being able to listen to all the parties. I think as a manager, right, you want to give your employees and your team members that opportunity to be heard, so that they feel like and that they actually are contributing to what you're trying to accomplish. And I think trying to build up that shared sense of ownership on a team, rewarding folks when they do a good job. Even if it doesn't have to be financial, just like pat in the back or recognition in the office, right? Those sorts of things go a long way. Helping people, giving them a chance to contribute to shaping the mission, right? And what our objectives are going to be and what our goals are going to be, so that it's not just coming from me and it's not just coming from you. It's kind of this more, a collective. It's not collective leadership, but it's a collective form of building that buy-in, right? And then once you have agreed on the goals, right? That's where the leadership comes in. It's we need to execute. We've talked, we've discussed, we've decided what we want to go do, how we're going to go do it. Now it's time to execute, right? And that's where I think that would be my leadership approach coming out of that.
Okay. How would you, trying to get a few different topics into this, in terms of conflict resolution, one of the aspects of a manager or a leader is to interact with different parties that may have differing opinions on how things should be fixed. And sometimes that can be pretty heated. How do you resolve conflicts?
For sure. And so, you guys know, I've been on the town council in my town for 7 years, at least. I think it's 7 years now. And there's always conflict, and there's angry constituents who come to the meetings, and you kind of have to be respectful, hear them out, right? And my approach has been that, right? Listen, hear them out, and really, when you do have to get into a disagreement, lead with facts, right? Really just lead with facts. Try to take the emotion out of it, kind of try to understand where they're coming from, right? But again, stick to the facts, right? And treat them fairly. Actually listen to them, acknowledge that you have a different opinion. And then, they're not always gonna get what they want, right? Most of the time they're not gonna get what they want, right? Most of the time you're just gonna be, that's how it is in town government and in politics. Like, there's usually never like that perfect solution. Someone's gonna be mad, right? It's not gonna be perfect. And sometimes there's no good answer. And it's like, what's the best answer that we can come up with? That's the decisions that you guys have to make all the time, I'm sure. But going back to like the conflict resolution piece, I do feel like that if people feel that they are heard, right, and that you're taking their input into the decisions that you ultimately make, that is going to kind of, you can see them the next day around town, and they'll say, "Hey, Justin, how are you doing?" Right? It's not going to be this animosity that's carried over and festers. And so that's just the approach that I take in terms of how to handle conflict, particularly in this municipal, in the town space where things can get pretty emotional and pretty heated pretty quickly.
Okay. So just to sidebar that, Justin.
Yeah.
As part of your role, there will be some HR duties. So experience with HR. I know we're just talking about conflict resolution, but
For sure.
HR as a whole, do you have familiarity with that role and that process?
Yes, and I'm not an HR specialist, but I've managed folks on my team. I've written contracts for employees. I've negotiated contracts with employees. I've been an employee at a large corporation, so I kind of understand the hoops you have to jump through from an HR perspective. I talked a lot about my HR style, I think, in the last answer, right, as well, which is just really, so I don't know if I answered that question well there, but just general HR background.
Yep.
I'll pause if you follow.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, not to jump too far ahead, but you mentioned contracts. So just so you know, 5 of our 6 unions are up this year.
Yes.
Experience with contract negotiation and sitting in the big chair in contract negotiation.
And so, I've never been a town administrator or a town manager before. So that's just on the face of it. However, I've been involved in union contract negotiations, really from a strategic and an advisory perspective. When I was on the board of Selectmen, it's not purely union, but right, we negotiated with the town administrator, we negotiated with the police chief, we hired a police chief and a fire chief, right? And we negotiated with one union when I was on the board of Selectmen. In the new form of government as a town council, I sat side by side with our town manager. Our council did, and I did as the president. We were kind of, we have a different relationship, right? Just being that the chief executive and the chief of the legislative branch. And so we really took a deep dive into the strategy of our overall posture on contracts. We in North Attleboro did the same thing that Halifax does, where I think all 5 come up at the same time. And I think there's pros and cons to that, right? Like there's the predictability that you get of having a contract that is in place for 5 years, and you can predict what that financial impact is going to be on your budgets. It enables planning. At the same time, as you're going to see now, all 5 come up at once, and that could have a pretty deep financial hit to a town in a given year. And so again, the key for that, of course, is planning, preparation. And you need to make sure that you have enough allocated in your capital, in your salary reserve fund for the next year to accommodate for what you're expecting to negotiate. And I think one of the things that I've also learned through this process, right, is there's a balance between the desire to have employee retention and have a competitive town in terms of a salary perspective that you have with your unions. And in North Attleboro, versus managing long-term liabilities, right? And so you have to be really careful with that. I think that's actually an opportunity, having read through a lot of the contracts that you guys posted on your website, to sort of take a look at that long-term liability element of those contracts. And I won't say any more about the current contracts here, but that was just something that I would look at. But again, I think it's that mix of like, what kind of community do you want to be, and what kind of employer do you want to be? Like in North Attleboro, we didn't want to be the highest paying employer. We didn't want to be the lowest paying employer. We wanted to be somewhere right in the middle where we're competitive, so we're not losing people like we were in our police department. We were losing police officers and firefighters left and right. We'd train them up to get their EMT certification, and they'd go somewhere else because they weren't making enough money, right? And so you can't like snap your fingers and say, hey, that's going to get fixed in 1 year, right? I think you have to have a honest conversation with the labor unions, with their leadership, keeping Proposition 2.5 in mind at all times. Like this is one constraint that we have on our ability to pay you what you deserve. But show them like that long term plan. Like we're not going to get you there in year 1, but in year 3 and year 4, you're going to be at that place where you need to be, right? And here's how we're going to get there. And there's trade-offs that you make along the way. And so I've got a lot of familiarity with that. Like I've been participating in an advisory capacity, in a strategic capacity, my entire tenure since I've been involved in municipal government. It would be just a change for me to sit in the seat, but it's one that I'm looking forward to making.
Okay.
In your, you had mentioned you've written contracts for other employees, or is this in your private sector experience, or?
I might have been loose with the word written.
Okay.
I've had contracts. We work with we have an HR department in advisors, right? And they're providing like the basic template. I'm telling them which terms we want to include in it.
Yep.
I've redlined in the corporate world. I've redlined contracts. Like legal departments will send us contracts, service contracts, actual legal operational frameworks with partners and how we're going to go to market together. Okay. And I've, with a fine-tooth comb, gone through those and kind of said, here's what's good, what's not. So a lot of experience with contracts.
Okay, I guess along those lines, and I was sort of wanted to see your experience with negotiating contracts beyond just this is what we need to do, but actually
Yeah.
face to face with a vendor, with a employee, with a
Sure.
experience of because there's a whole art to that negotiation.
There is, and I've managed. Just for an example, one of my roles that I had at VMware was I owned analyst relations for our global channel organization, and we had contracts with companies like IDC and Canalys and Gartner. I don't know if any of you guys know that space, but those are like advisory firms in technology. They advise on technology, right? And so they have a lot of services that they offer. There's multi-million-dollar a year services, and there's databases, and there's consultants, and they're helping us out on projects. And so I negotiated those contracts. I wrote those contracts. I managed the budget that for all of them, and I aligned them to our goals and what we wanted to achieve as an organization. And so I have that experience of managing those contracts, negotiating them, and yeah, so the good experience there. I negotiated the town manager's contract twice in our town. I was involved with the selectmen when we negotiated the firefighters and the fire chief and the town administrator contract multiple times. And so I do have also that experience of that face-to-face negotiation, even one-on-one in a one-on-one capacity with a fellow executive.
Okay. You had mentioned in your sort of introduction to municipal government, in I think referencing to your education, you're a numbers person. You have worked in finance. Can you tell us your experience and some challenging situations you've encountered in dealing with the municipal finance of in budgeting?
There's a story of my life, and it was a story of all of our lives, particularly when I got involved. So our town, before I got involved in local government, the second time around in North Attleboro, where I am now, I had moved there. I'd been living there for 3 or 4 years. I had small kids. We moved there for the schools, and we have family in town, right? That's why we moved there. And within a couple of years of me joining that town, they closed down the elementary school, which is a block away from my house, Allen Ave School. And the fire station was also near my house, had reduced staffing. They were closed in like afternoons. It was a bad situation. Cuts, all the time, every year. What are we going to cut? And I joined the finance committee at that time. That's what prompted me to get involved. Like, why is this happening? And so I learned a lot. I learned a lot as a part of that. And again, we were still in that cycle of cut every year. What do we cut? How do we survive? And it was at that point that I realized if I wanted to make the changes that I felt the town needed to make, I needed to go the next level up. And so that's when I ran for the Board of Selectmen. Right from the start, we took a long-term view, right? We built a plan. We looked at our policies, our financial policies. We passed a free cash and stabilization policy. It's one of our first, because we were, like Halifax, I've gathered, potentially leveraging free cash to help sustain an operating budget because you just don't have anywhere else to go, and those cuts are painful. Our town was doing that as well. And so we created a free cash and stabilization policy, and really, really high level. It's probably too much detail, but like every year, free cash is certified around the October period, right? And we want to aspire to, I like to aspire to around like a 5% target for free cash versus your operating budget. I think that gives you a little bit of cushion, but it's also not, you need to also be a good steward of the town's finances and the taxpayers' finances. So you don't want to have 10% free cash. You don't want to have this huge number because then that's wasteful, right? And that money should go back to the taxpayers, right? But if it's in a reasonable range, I think it gives you that comfort level to operate. So what we did every year with that free cash and stabilization policy, which we still have in place now, and we've expanded, is we took snow and ice. Every year, you know this, I'm sure, you can deficit spend on that, so you budget the minimum. So we pay off snow and ice with the free cash. That was like the first thing, no matter what. And from there, 75% of every dollar in free cash was going to be directed into our general stabilization fund until we hit 5% of our operating budget. And that became the rule. And then you still have the 25% other to play with, right, and kind of fund different projects and things that you want. Yeah. Never on the operating budget. That was the part of the policy. We're not using free cash. We had to make do. And so through that policy and being disciplined with that, we were able to build up our stabilization fund over a number of years, right? And that helped us, and I talked about this with the screening committee, having those stabilization funds saved away helped us to have the money to fund the $2 million feasibility study for a new high school. And we had strategically, pocketed that money and built that up over a number of years for us to be able to do that. And so I went really long, Bernie. Can you bring me back to the point of where I was at?
We're trying to get a sense of your understanding of municipal finance. So I think you're doing a good job
Pretty bang up job.
doing that.
Can I ask a follow-up on
Go
that?
ahead.
So you mentioned that the 25% was never to touch the operating budget. Ever restrictive there? How many overrides has North Attleboro seen? How did you conquer? How did you juxtapose each other?
I'm glad you asked. It's a great story. So before my time in local government in North Attleboro, there had been 2 overrides attempted in like 3 or 4 years before we actually passed an override. And they had failed. They had failed badly. Like nobody thought we were going to be able to pass this override. Conventional wisdom was the newspapers. You've no chance. You're crazy. Here I was, a candidate for the Board of Selectmen on the Finance Committee out there saying like, hey, we need to do this. And the way that we can really, it's like what I talked about. It's like you had to actually build that trust in the community. And that happened. You're going door to door, living room to living room, having community forums, having open conversations, leading with the facts, like not getting involved in social media, tit for tat fights, just providing people with that factual information. Like with the new high school, for example, that we just passed. So we had tours, right? Like people say, like, I went to that high school 40 years ago. It's fine, right? It's a good school. I've been there. Like, took my kids to the games. That's good. No, not so much when you actually go and you have a kid give you a guided tour of the facility that needs to work, and there's holes in the walls, and there's one elevator that doesn't work, and there's disabled children have to leave class 20 minutes early to get to their next class on the next floor, right? Like that sort of stuff to kind of get people to see and touch and feel and understand and know that it's not bull. It's not it's real, right? And so you need to quantify that need, make it real for people, be honest, lead with the facts, have open communication, make it available everywhere possible, make it available on the website, like give them tools. Like we created a calculator for the override that said this is what your property value is, this is going to be your estimated average impact. The Board of the Selectmen at the time also took a pledge that we would move from a single tax rate to a split tax rate, and to move slightly more onto the businesses, right, than was, just to sort of mitigate that impact on the residents. And so this was like a comprehensive plan for us to be able to make this happen, for people to have that trust. And I think it was a great success. It passed overwhelmingly in a town very, very red town traditionally that has just been very hostile towards overrides in the past. And we managed to get that done. It was really locally like a historic accomplishment for us to get that done.
So there's been one override in North Attleboro?
No interest in.
And then the high school project, is that a debt exclusion?
That is a debt exclusion.
Okay.
We secured $100 million in funding from the state for a $275 million high school. It's unbelievable how much these things cost. You probably saw, where was it? Was it Lincoln somewhere or somewhere recently?
Lincoln, Lexington.
Lexington, thank you. Like it's unbelievable how much these buildings cost now, right? And so, but we recently passed that as well. And it was a similar playbook to getting that passed. It was like we had already built the trust with the override and with a lot of the government reform that we had gone through, and it was the same thing. This time, I was the president of the council, and so there's different roles that you can play when you're as an elected official, right, versus kind of being like the lobby group that's out there in the community. And so again, as the council president, I set the agenda for those meetings, and I used that as a way to have people come to our meetings to present like the facts of the case of that high school. We talked about the building plans and kind of the need, the financial components of it, and all the different aspects to make sure that we were leveraging that council forum as a place to help educate the public, in addition to all the other ones. And again, when you're in that seat of government, it can't be like advocate pro or against. We're giving you the information that you need to make an informed decision, which again I think helps build trust in the community, and that's really what it comes down to. And at the end of the day, like you're giving people, like I said before, you're giving people that chance to provide input. And even if you voted against the school or you voted against the override, which is some people can't afford it, straight up, like some people can't afford it, they're gonna vote no, it's okay, right? But at least they had all the information and, you know, we had a good discussion about it.
You've talked about financial policies, and we've talked about budgeting. I think you've certainly demonstrated a good understanding of that. But I'm curious as to what work you've done with fiscal forecasting and multi-year planning for budgets.
I have a lot of experience in both of those areas from the corporate world as well as from the business world. And so did I say corporate and business?
Yeah.
I meant to say corporate and municipal. And so from the corporate world, one of my strengths is actually forecasting. Like I do opportunity analysis. I look at new industries. I look at new products that we're introducing. I look at different market forces, competitive drivers, and I actually develop multi-year forecasts for our products and for kind of the traction that we're going to make within partnerships, selling different solutions. So like I love that. Like I owned the planning of a 5-year, $1 billion business plan with Lenovo. That was like one of my last roles that I had. So I like that. I like that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I always kind of take that long-term view. In North Attleboro, from a municipal perspective as well, we have a very detailed and rigorous budget process that starting in very early January, it's going to be kicked off, where we have 5-year capital improvement plans, we have 5-year budget forecasts, revenue, expenses, kind of what are the budget drivers, and we always do take that long-term view. And I think that's incredibly important. One of the things that we did as well from a capital perspective is, again, it gets kind of to the policies. I think policies are very important for achieving your long-term goals too, right? And from a capital improvement plan perspective, what we did was we said we're going to pay in interest payments every year the same. I mean, previously it was the same amount every year, which I said I don't like that. I think it should be the same percentage of our budget. That way it can grow with inflation, right? It can grow with so that was kind of the posture that we adopted. But again, from a capital improvement planning perspective, making sure that that doesn't go up too high, it doesn't drop down too low, that it's staying where it should be, so that you can maintain facilities. It's being proactive versus being reactive. And so I'll stop there, I think, but just, multi-year planning, municipal and corporate, for sure.
So I commend you, Justin, on your involvement in your community. I mean, you can obviously tell that you care a lot, and I think we need more people like you involved in their communities. As you know, the role of town administrator in a municipality is a 24/7 operation sometimes.
Sure.
So just a question on striking that balance between your current situation in North Attleboro, and if you were to get this position here, how do you see that playing out?
I would have to resign my seat on the town council in North Attleboro, for sure. I feel like I would be torn, there would be a conflict of interest. I've got nighttime meetings here, I've got nighttime meetings in North Attleboro, so that would have to end, unfortunately. It's been a good run, and we just passed that new high school, and I feel like it's a good time for me to step away. There's a good leadership team in place behind me, so I'm comfortable stepping away as far as that goes. So personally, with the 24/7 part too, like that's okay. I mean, I'm in the corporate world already. I'm working Saturdays and Sundays if I have to, right? You're on call, as far as like the nighttime meetings go, I've been living this life for 10 years. Like I've been doing the finance committee meetings, I've been doing the council meetings, I've been on the MSBA building committee, I've been going to the school committee meetings, taking my kids to different places too. Like you find a way to balance that. And I think that's part of this lifestyle. And my family understands that. I'm there for them a lot, right? But sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I'm at these meetings because I have to be, right? And I want to be, and I'm passionate about it. This is where I want to be.
Yeah, just to pick up on that point, like I have young kids too, and I missed hockey practice tonight. So I see on the last page you're volunteering in multiple sports and so forth, and I wouldn't want anything to get in the way of what you enjoy. But nighttime meetings, we meet twice a month, planning board, ZBA, finance committee needs your help, you're available?
I'm there, not a problem.
Okay, I guess the major difference there is, at the current rate, you're down the street, now it's a half hour, 35, 40 minute drive, and that's not an issue.
No, it's not an issue. And I think if it became an issue, I would coach less. You know, I already have a plan for it where I'll be an assistant coach for a lot of these teams instead of a head coach, right? And basketball happens at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and on Sundays, right? So like, I can find a way to make that work, and I wouldn't want to give up the coaching because it's really, I love it. It's probably the thing I love.
I just wouldn't want anything to be prohibitive here.
No, it would.
That's a better way to probably say that.
Yeah.
And if and when we get that far, just touching base on a possible, when could you start? You think, how far down the road are we thinking that this might happen if we were selected?
Yeah, I'd like to start soon. I would assume, early January would be. I don't know how long it takes to get we'd have to negotiate a contract, and but yeah, like middle of January, early January would be ideal.
And then just, from my point of view, and I don't want to speak for anybody else up here, but I think Halifax would benefit from a steady hand and some, long-term vision. Where do you see yourself in 5-10 years? What's the plan? I know you've had a long experience helping at North Attleboro for 15 plus years, so forth. Just kind of where do you see yourself? What's the goal?
Yeah, I'm making this move. I'm making this move from the corporate world into municipal government, right? And I'm very excited about this opportunity. And I'm probably stealing my own thunder for like my closing argument, right? But I think just the opportunities that we have here, the challenges that you have here, are so well aligned with my experience and background. Whether it's evaluating the override study, whether it's evaluating the changes in your form of government. I watched your meeting last night, right, just with PFAS in the water. We've solved that problem in North Attleboro. Like, and it wasn't me. It was like I was part of the team that did that. But like, the experience that I have, the templates that I can follow, I think really this opportunity, I look at this as like a 3 to 5 year at least, like job at least, right? Like let's come in here and let's do these things. We can accomplish a heck of a lot, right? And then I think at that point, if it's still a good fit,
sure,
we continue, or that's a long time.
Yeah.
Can I just ask how you solved the PFAS problem? You said you solved it?
Not me.
Oh, you were part of it, right?
Yeah, good. I'm glad you asked. And I looked at, like you guys have, in my opinion, there's kind of two issues. There's the manganese in the water, and there's PFAS, and they're related because I think the filter that you ultimately get, right, would filter out both, right? But there's things you can do in the short term for the manganese issue versus PFAS is a longer term thing. But we did take that approach. We took a short term and a long term approach. It was multifaceted. I think at first we kind of had to alleviate the symptom. Right? And so we got a EPA grant, or DPA grant, Massachusetts Environmental Protection Agency grant, for $150,000 to bring in a water kiosk. We put it at our DPW, at our water department building.
Like a blue drop.
Yeah. And so we made that water available for everybody, not just people in North Attleboro. There are people from Plainville coming in too, but like we made that available to them, right? And so because as you know, like I think it was discussed last night, like there's certain people shouldn't be drinking water with certain levels of PFAS in it, like pregnant women and senior citizens and those who are immunocompromised. And so we made that water available for them. That was like, all right, we got to do something reactive now in the interim, right? And so we did that. I think then it was, all right, and one of the roles that I played was kind of bringing the Board of Public Works together with the town council to put a plan in place for how are we going to solve the problem. And we have 3 different wells in our town, right? And so we had to put a multi-year plan together for how we were going to address it. One of the things that's also really important to me, and it's something that I pushed and made happen in North Attleboro, was improving our relationship with our local state representatives, our state senator and our state rep, as well as our Congressman Auchincloss, right? And there, we tied I actually invited them to our meetings. They came to our meetings and they talked to us. And so we aligned our asks for aid from them to their priorities. And at the federal level, this was the Biden administration, there was a heavy priority on water safety issues, water access. And we were able to help secure a $1 million grant from, is it either FEMA or it came from Congressman Auchincloss, to help pay for one of the wells being fitted with this filter on Adamsdale Ave in our town. Our DPW director was able to secure zero interest loans as well as part of that. And so And again, it's the ratepayers who pay for this. It's not the taxpayers. It's the ratepayers who are paying, at least in North Attleboro, paying these funds. And so I'm giving you the long story, but like it's really a three-pronged approach. We worked with our state and federal to get legislators to get grants, get money. You solve the problem in the near term a little bit by being responsive to the public and kind of giving them, helping them through the interim period. And then it was building a long-term plan and actually going ahead and executing. And we did. We fixed the Adamsdale well, which was the first one, which was our biggest. And once we got that online, we were able to shut down another well, which I think is called the McKean well, which is being upgraded now. And at that point, once we turned on Adamsdale, people could drink the water again without worry, right? And that was a big accomplishment. And we made it a top priority of the town council. Every year we set our goals. At the beginning of the year, we set our goals just like you guys do, right? And that was it. That was our priority. And the town manager, got in line with us, and we made sure that got done.
Thank you.
Just you mentioned grants. You're aware of the grant situation in Halifax as it relates to the MBTA.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say procurement experience. Are you, what's my letters,
MCPP.
MCPPO certified, all that good stuff?
Can I answer both questions? Can I talk about the grants real quickly? And then
Do both.
MCPPO
Sure.
as well?
Go for it.
Well, I'll do the MCPO one first.
Yeah.
I actually have one class down on my MCPPO.
Great.
I'm going to sign up for the second one for January, and I'm going to take the next one in February, and I'm going to get the MCPPO certification. And I can talk about my more experience with procurement, but I just want you guys to know that's something that I'm going to get, and I already started. But in terms of the grants, I did some research on this, and I think so the grants that you will have a hard time getting are like MassWorks and I think anything associated with the green communities. Effectively, anything associated with housing is where you're going to have your issues with grants. But Halifax, it's not going to affect Chapter 70 funding. It's not going to affect your impact to MSBA potential if you're looking for school building or repairs or anything like that. And because you guys are a small community, there's different. You qualify for different programs like RPA. There's like the rural RCA. There's I forget what it's called right now. I'm sorry. Like rural communities grant or funding, where you can get like upwards of $500,000 for repairs to buildings and roads, and like there's a number of programs that are available to smaller communities that I think Halifax would be primed to take advantage of, and that would be irrespective of whether or not the town decides to pursue the MBTA zoning bylaw in the future or not. I would go in assuming it's not going to happen, at least in the near term, and really focus on trying to get some of those other grants, right? Like let's make a concerted effort. If you guys agree with me on that and wanted me to do that, that would be a place where I would spend my time, right, and just pursuing those.
Yep. Great. Anybody else, Bill? You got? I was just gonna one quick one. Town meeting. I know you've been involved. You said in North Attleboro, but it's a different animal as town administrator. So your comfortability presenting at town meeting, in front of can sometimes be passionate crowd. How would you steer the ship? How do you see that going every May?
I've been there in front of the angry mob with pitchforks and torches in North Attleboro many times. And we had just where I grew up in Groveland, and I was part of there's an annual town meeting form of government, so I participated in that. And we had a representative town meeting form of government in North Attleboro before our current, so I have familiarity with like the warrant process and just the structure of those meetings and how they run, and what can happen. I'm fully comfortable preparing, giving you guys what you need to prepare for that meeting, giving the town what they need to make sure that the warrants are posted on time and the information is documented accurately and is distributed. I think one of the things that we did that I don't know if you guys do, but it's one of the things that we did in North Attleboro that I thought was effective was we had the RTM, is considered ATM, coordinating committee, and they would meet before the annual town meeting with the different precincts and the leads and kind of go through everything that was on the docket and get a lot of the questions answered ahead of time to make that representative town meeting seamless. I think that would be, or more seamless, and that would be something that I would look to replicate potentially with if you guys agree, here as well, just to try to help prepare everybody who's in those meetings to make them go smoothly. So yeah, perfectly comfortable with that background, familiar with it, and ready to get into it. And by the way, I I love this form of government. It's the purest form of democracy there is. I know that you guys are looking at some reform, and I'd be happy to help advise and be part of that. And there are opportunities to be more efficient, I'm sure. Nonetheless, I love the open town meeting form of government. I was disappointed when my town went so far away from it. Like I thought there was room for reform, but I really value kind of the direct democracy in action. So that's something that, again, is appealing to me about
It can be quite a show, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
And then maybe just one more quick thing from me. How do you envision like our relationship working in terms of communication? You know, we meet twice a month officially. You're here 4 days a week.
Yeah.
What do you envision that feeling like or looking like on our side?
So I look at the role of the town administrator, in addition to like the day-to-day duties and the administrative duties, the programmatic and departmental duties within town hall. You guys aren't going to be there every day. I'm assuming different roles, different jobs, like not in town hall every single day. That's my domain, and that's I'll kind of hold the fort down for you guys while you guys are in other places. I look at the role of town administrator as the executor of the Board of Selectmen strategy and vision, and I hope to be an advisor as well to you guys and to be a partner. I'm from the partner world, and like that's kind of how I operate. I believe that 1 + 1 = 3, right? When we come together, and that's kind of the approach that I would hope to take with you guys. Is that you're gonna decide the vision, you're gonna decide the objectives and the goals. I'm gonna give you the information that you need to make those decisions, and I'm gonna execute the plan and strategy. I'm gonna give you guys roadmaps and ways in which I think we can actually deliver the things that you want to do, and I'll give you guys realistic timelines. Right? Like I'm not going to promise you the moon and stars. I'm going to actually tell you, here's what I think we can do. And I think it's important, and it's something that I'll learn as I'm here, and I've learned over time, there's only so much like output or cycles that town hall has. There's limited resources. And when I first was on the Board of Selectmen, I wanted to do all these great things. And I realized like if I got the machinery of government working on one of them, that was taking up a lot of the capacity. And we couldn't do the 3 or 4 other things. And so it's really important to kind of take those goals and put them in perspective and put a plan together that takes into account the ability of the government to actually go ahead and execute, right? And so I hope that answered your question. But again, I would see it as a partnership, right? And I'd like it to be transparent, open, honest. I think that for me to be successful in town hall, I would need everybody there to understand that I speak for you guys, and I'm working on your behalf. And vice versa, right? I think that you guys need to know that I have understanding of what's happening in town hall, and I think that's my role as like that facilitator between the two.
Good. Just a quick question on pivoting.
Sorry?
Pivoting. So I used in the last interview we had the analogy of everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
Oh, I love that. I use that quote all the time.
Yeah. So give us an example maybe of something that you were thinking was going one way, Justin, or you had planned out that for whatever instances pivoted, and how did you meet that challenge, and how did you see your way through it?
Yeah, I think that happens all the time. It does happen all the time, right? In life, in business, in municipal government. So I think the best way to be ready for that is to have like standard operating procedures in municipal government, within departments, within your own role, right? So you're kind of when something unforeseen happens, I know it's not your question, as you said, the plan gets blown up, and I agree. But you have the plan, that you kind of know what your next steps are, at least, right? And so that's an approach that I take to sort of prevent disasters from happening when something unforeseen happens, like just to have that playbook. And I think that's something that we've done in the town of North Attleboro from an emergency preparedness perspective. And again, working very closely with the town manager to implement this across our public security, our public safety organizations. But we had floods that really badly damaged our town, and it came out of the blue, and residents their houses were washed away, right? It was a disaster area, right? I think we actually had to go and we got MEMA certification that it was a disaster. FEMA wouldn't give it to us. But so how did we pivot from that? Again, my role as a town councilor was to make sure that our first responders they're the experts, right? They're the ones that they're going to solve this. But I served as a voice for the people that were impacted. And I thought, okay, what can I do here? They invited me to go down to the Emergency Operations Center at our police station to be a part of it. And I said, guys, like, I'm the town council president. Like, I'm not emergency responder. So I helped, but I said, here's what I actually can do in this situation. And I helped the residents that were having a hard time with damage to their houses, get in contact with their state rep, get in contact with MEMA, get in contact with our Department of Public Works, and help them understand kind of historical patterns of flooding in their area and what they could do to kind of help fix that. And so when that emergency happened, I just took on the role that I could, which I think was going to be a facilitator and enabler to help the folks in my community as the best way I could. I could give you other examples, but I don't know.
No, that's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I think the other topic I have here that we didn't specifically jump into, but I think you covered it in your discussion of the override and your conflict resolution, is citizen relations and government transparency. So I think unless the board has unless the board had something else, but if you want to.
Oh, I would just say transparency is really important to me, so one of the first things that I did and the council did when I became the president was we established a transparency and communications committee, and because again that was what a common complaint in our community was, we don't know when the meetings are, we don't know what's happening, and there's only so much you can do, right? Like, people, you can't force them to consume these resources, but what that committee did was we put a prioritized list together of kind of things that we thought we could do to improve communication and transparency within our town. And so that resulted in an overhaul of our website. It resulted in kind of a reform of our communication policies on social media. We invested in a digital sign in front of Town Hall where we could kind of post, meeting tonight of this board, and or just positive messages in the community, but just like ways to kind of, reaching people where they are. We did more through North TV, which is our local cable access, making all of our meetings available for free to the public, right? And so it's, again, a multi-pronged approach, but I think that's how you have to communicate with the public, is you have to hit them where they're at. And again, you can't, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? But you just put that out there, you put all that information out there in every venue you can. And I think that's really the best you can do as a municipal leader, in my opinion.
Okay.
Great.
We have a couple minutes. Do you have any questions for the board?
Yes, I had some prepared. I mean, there's a lot going on in this town.
Yeah, there is.
Yes.
Right, and that's okay. Like,
All of the above.
yeah, all the above. And so that's kind of my question for you is, I talked about that bandwidth challenge in municipal government. Of all the things that are sort of happening right now, and you may have different answers to each of you, but whether it's the potential government reform, right, or whether it's the potential override, or it's the PFAS issue, or kind of where do you guys see as sort of like the most pressing, or the MBTA zoning, like what's the most pressing issue for you guys right now, the thing that
That's maybe, of all the questions we've asked, Justin, that's maybe the best question of the night, and you asked it. So
All 3 in 1.
I know, and it's hard. I think the one that's kind of staring us right in the face in the immediate future, I think, is budgetary.
Yeah.
I mean, as you're seeing in communities all across Massachusetts, the math isn't mathing. As far as, Prop 2.5 and things like our insurance premiums going up 12 to 15%.
18%.
18%, right. So just trying to, get 5 pounds of sugar out of a 2-pound bag, it's tough. So I think financially those are the immediate hurdles that this town faces right now. I do love that Tom is kind of spearheading, well, he was handed the government study committee, because I do think a lot of what we do in Halifax, we do because that's how we've always done it. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of that going around here in the town. So at least looking at possible opportunities to modernize a little bit is great. And then, PFAS and our water issues. We had a meeting you saw last night. So there's no shortage of things to work on here.
For sure.
But I would argue, to a candidate like yourself, a great opportunity to really make some impact.
I agree.
So Those are
Thank you.
mine in a nutshell, guys.
Yeah, I would slide down, you know, the MBTA, I don't know if you watched that meeting or heard about that, but that was a resounding result, 700 to 12, and that's a hot button issue a little further down my pecking order at the moment.
Yeah.
The water has been present and a problem for a while, and that's not a new issue. It's kind of coming to a head recently with increased frustration. But I agree with Jonathan that, you know, and whoever is hired, their first 90 days will be picking up where the interim has left off to work with a very strong finance committee.
Good.
And continue the budget process. The budget is staring us right in the face. It's priority number 1 and 2, in my opinion, in the short term. As it results, it will resolve in one direction or the other in the next 135 days. With Proposition 2.5, you know, potentially being presented at town meeting and on the ballot, and or on the ballot, depending on how that vote goes. Or it's priority number 1 and 2 for me.
Very good.
Bill, you got anything?
I agree, it's the budget. I mean, if we can't wrap our heads around this budget, we're in big trouble.
Yeah.
The money's gotta come from somewhere.
It does.
It's not growing out in the back tree out there, so.
No money trees?
Nope.
All right. That makes sense. That makes sense. And I think it speaks to, you asked me when I wanted to start. I think the sooner the better, because we're starting our budget process in North Attleboro now. I'm already planning for our annual budget policy review. Like I started working on that the other day. Someone else will take that over for me, hopefully. But that's, you know, again, I agree. That's the place to start. I think that would be the primary focus of the early days. Yeah. And there's the kind of the unknowns of Prop 2.5 too. And if you're gonna pursue that effort should start right away, right? Like that. And I know there's already a committee studying it, but like that communication to the public, educating them, giving them a chance to provide their feedback, ask their questions. That should start now. And we did that in North Attleboro. We had one budget that was prepared for no override, and we had one budget that was prepared for override. And I think we would have to do, you know, if the override initiative gained steam, we would have to actually produce 2 budgets. So you're even making it even harder. But I think that's also like a good way to kind of show the public too, like, here's what we're looking at. You know, like if we don't have the override, and you have to be honest. The one thing I hate is when town administrators or town managers will say or department heads say, if you don't pass an override, we're gonna have to lay off 25 people. Like, back it up a little bit. Like, let's actually be honest about what the costs will be. And sometimes you are going to lay off like 10, 15, but don't overblow it, right? Be honest with the public and present that case, and then present the budget as you'd like it to be, potentially, right? With that, you know, cash infusion and what you could do with it, and what that would mean for them. And so that would be, I think I agree with you that would be the day 1 through day 90 activity.
But you have to, if you're gonna have an override, and you have the budget with no override, you have to follow through with what happens is reality. We're not making this up, it's gonna happen. You can't forecast this stuff and say, oh no, we got this all fixed over here. It's gotta happen.
Yeah, you can't just, that's what happened in North Attleboro, is they would say there's gonna be cuts, say there's gonna be cuts,
right.
And magically,
Money appears.
there wasn't the cuts
wasn't the
after all,
cuts.
right? And that's how you lose credibility.
Right.
As a leadership team, that's how you lose credibility with the public, and that's how you don't get over it.
Just be honest and transparent.
Yeah,
Yep.
I agree.
That's the best way.
I agree.
I think we're out of time.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you for coming in, and
I appreciate it. It was great to meet you
Yes,
guys.
thank you. It's great to meet you. And just to let you know, Justin, the board hopes to have our decision by the end of the evening.
Excellent.
So we won't,
By my phone.
yeah, have your phone with you as well. So nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
Me too. Yeah, appreciate you coming in. Yeah, good luck to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And again, guys, we have a little bit of time. Next candidate's not due in for another 10 minutes or so. So, okay, yeah, we'll take a quick 5-minute recess and then start up. We'll look at 7:54 because Bernie informs me that the next candidate is ready.
Steve is coming in.
All right, Steve, how are you? Jonathan Seelig, nice to meet you. Yeah.
Tom Pratt, pleasure. Nice to meet you.
Bill Smith. Nice to meet you.
Yeah. You want to start this one?
No, you go ahead.
You sure?
Go ahead. Yeah, you did very well.
I don't know about that.
I might have a position for you.
We'll talk money later. First off, Steve, what do you prefer?
I prefer Steven these days.
Okay.
That's what my mother gave me. I live with my dad on the same property, and he goes by Steve, so I've been relegated back to Steven. 'Cause
Steven?
I'm a junior.
Gotcha. So Steven, the first one's always the easy one. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested about this position here as town administrator for the town of Halifax.
Yeah, sure. So, first things first, thank you for offering me the opportunity to come here tonight and talk about the town administrator position here in Halifax. I enjoyed the screening committee, and I see some of the members in the crowd tonight. So that's very nice to see, civically engaged citizens. But why Halifax and why now? I think fit and timing is right for me right now. As you saw in my application package, I actually lived in town here for 8 years, between 2005 and 2013. I enjoyed living here. It reminds me a lot of where I grew up. I grew up in a rather large town on the Cape, Barnstable. You probably know of it. There's 7 distinct villages in Barnstable. I happen to grow up in Marston's Mills, which happens to be the more rural agricultural village that's in Marston's Mills. We have 2 street lights, I believe, so very similar to Halifax. Population's about 6,700 in the village as of last check. So there's a lot of similarities. And when I moved here in 2005, it was after I graduated Clemson University with my wife at the time. There's a lot of good memories that I formed here in Halifax. My firstborn daughter came home for the first time to Halifax, and we lived right over in the condominiums on D2 number 8, Leiden Lane, Halifax. So that's where I lived. There's a lot of development in town now. I see a lot of progress. And moving forward, it's a place that when I was looking at my maturation through my career, it really started when I was back in high school, when I was about 15 years old. There was a river that flowed by my house in Marston's Mills. The herring were having a tough time getting up to their traditional breeding grounds, and I wondered why. And I asked that question at school, and they formed a group. And in that group, we got involved with the conservation department because we started looking at the river and doing monitoring. And then I started becoming involved with more town boards and committees. And we competed nationally in science envirothons, and we got a proclamation at the end of all that from the town council, and I still have it to this day. So that was like my first, introduction to local government, and it always stuck with me. When I graduated from Clemson University in 2004, my intention was to come back to Cape Cod and buy a plot of land in the water and be an oyster farmer. I went for aquaculture, fisheries, and wildlife at Clemson University. What I did there was I also tied a minor in environmental science and policy to it, and that's what really sort of tugged me towards local government, because when I came back, I became the conservation agent in Mashpee relatively quickly. Well, I was the assistant at first, but then the conservation agent actually moved out to California, and I became a very young department head of a full-time staff of about 3 employees and 2 part-time staff. So very early introduction to departmental budget, line item budgeting, your impact on the general fund, the budgeting of the whole town. We had a lot of land acquisition that we did during that time. We had a lot of projects that are now evolved into PFAS projects. So that was a really good introduction to municipal government for me. From there, I moved into the private sector, and essentially what I did was essentially what I was doing with the Conservation Commission, but representing projects from the private side. Building all the way from residential lots all the way up to natural gas transmission lines, electric transmission lines, federal level permitting, Federal Energy Regulation Commission, and some higher end permitting at the federal level. What I did was I also discovered during that time that I didn't really particularly enjoy the ethics of that side, so I wanted to come back to local government. The housing crash happened in 2008, 2009. I was not stuck, but I was here in Halifax, and I decided to change careers. I went to nursing school, became very close to graduating, took all the education that I had gotten from nursing school, and I turned that into a 4-year stint in a medical lab, doing drug testing in a liquid chromatography mass spectrometer, which is just a fancy name for a device that tests urine for drug metabolites. And we were planning patients' records for, getting off of opioids. Did that for a while, and then in 2019, after a number of things happened in my personal life, that's what caused me to move away from Halifax. I didn't leave Halifax because I didn't like the town. My marriage dissolved. My partner went the other way. I moved back to the Cape. and rebuilt myself. I was a main reason why that didn't work out. So I had to become very self-aware. I had to work on myself. I had to become accountable, very transparent in everything I was doing. And I've rebuilt myself into what I am today. There's a little bit more to that story, but in 2019, I came to a crossroads. The lab I was working at closed down, and I was deciding if I wanted to go into further attack either a nurse practitioner or physician assistant role, or go get my MPA and build off of what I had already had in local government. And that's what I decided to do. In 2019, Mother's Day, around that time of that year, I actually had a severe medical emergency. I was in a coma for 9 days and in the hospital for a month. And when I came to, I made the decision that it was either going to be healthcare or public administration. I chose public administration because in healthcare, I was only going to be able to help out a few people here and there, case by case. In public administration, I felt like I could help out far more people, far more demographics, and have just a bigger scope of impact. And so that brings us sort of, into what I'm doing currently. The last 5 years have been really a really predicated, structured format for me to become a town administrator. It's been my goal for the last 6 years since I entered Bridgewater State College, or Bridgewater State University. So at the same time of entering Bridgewater State University, I was also the environmental planner and conservation agent in the town of Bridgewater. While I got my MPA, I worked on a number of large-scale projects right to the south here, which we can probably get into it in more depth. But from there, once I received my MPA, I went down to Middleborough because I knew I wanted to break into administration, and I had to take a chance on myself. I went from a very stable salary to making $14 an hour at 19 hours a week to become basically a management fellow in Jay McGrail's office down in Middleborough. And that quickly turned into an assistant HR director position within their first centralized HR department in town, where there's approximately 350 employees. So that brought a litany of change, and it gave me a ton of experience in HR at the municipal level over those 18 months. And now into my current role, where I work for the towns of Norwood and Sharon, where I do a lot of procurement for energy, I do a lot of project management, and then I am heavily involved with the budget. And it may not be the way you think. Energy touches everything. So when we're talking about forecasting, when we're talking about budgeting, energy has to become part of the conversation. We have to know what we're paying for it. We have to know what the rates are, and we have to know what projects are impacting, our use in town. So that's sort of where my focus is centered right now. So I'm currently in control of about 37 different facilities over the two towns, a fleet of vehicles that probably surpasses 250. In the event that, I don't end up in Halifax, I will be picking up the town of Medfield to add to my ledger. So adding up the bandwidth of my actual capacity, my bandwidth capacity. I'm very much in tune with local government. I love this stuff. And I would be honored to return to Halifax to lead this town through what is going to be a tough number of years. And I don't have this seen as a stepping stone either. For me, I like this town. I only left it because things weren't working out with the person I was with at the time. Even my wife has even started looking at homes in Halifax and looking on Zillow. So there is it's
a great town.
It is, and there is a potential. I'm not here to look to parlay this into a bigger gig somewhere else. I've got a very dedicated. Having a background as a planner, I've got a minimum 5-year plan that I've got in my head for this position, because it comes with credentials that I've attached to it that I want to earn while I'm here.
One thing that I just wanted to highlight that you had, I don't think you've mentioned, but it sort of reflects your interests, and is your participation in the MMA Suffolk
Yes.
Local Government Certificate Program. And that's,
Yeah.
How far along are you in that? And
Yeah, so the MMA Suffolk Certificate Program, which is a bridge to an MPA, which I already have, but what I'll do with the credits that result from that is I will probably bridge that to an MBA as well, and that will be on my own time, my own expense, because I love to learn. I'm a self-learner, and right now we are through 2 modules. We're through the general module, which was 5 weeks, 5 different Fridays during the course. I believe it was September when we started. And then in October and November, we moved to finance. We just finished the finance module where we got a lot of reps doing capital planning, budget, forecasting, and a lot of those tools that, theoretically I've been schooled in municipal finance. Dr. Tarsi, who you guys might recognize that name, Melinda Tarsi was a former chair of the FinCom here. I believe is responsible for a lot of the financial policies. She was actually my professor over at Bridgewater State, so I'm actually familiar with your financial policies as well already, because I've researched them quite a bit. But yeah, that class, we have 3 modules left that are each 5 weeks on Fridays, and we will complete in May, and then we will graduate in a ceremony in June in Boston at Suffolk University.
Okay, good. Let's talk about your management style and leadership style.
Sure.
As town administrator, you're responsible for the day-to-day the role,
Yeah.
right? Operations of the town organization, and then the role of the town administrator within the larger community of advancing the board's vision of what the town is all about. What's that style look like? And do you have an example that you could give us that would reflect that?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about this. I sort of call it operations integrator. I think the job as the town administrator here in Halifax is really to take the vision that's created by the residents and give it to the select board, because you're the elected body. And my job is to take that into the day-to-day operations, the policies, and enact those. And to work with you guys as a body to make sure that those are enacted in the way that you see fit. So there'd be a lot of communication there. There'd be a lot of equal communication, because again, I serve you as a body. I don't pick favorites. I think the only difference there would be with the chair in particular, would be logistics and planning out the agenda. That would be the only caveat above and beyond the attention that the select board members would get. But my management style, as you could tell probably very early on, I'm very approachable, I'm very open, I'm very transparent, I'm very accountable. There's a lot to my backstory that talks about my transparency and my accountability. I've been forced to rebuild myself through a lot of self-awareness and recovery type options and features. So I've really had to focus on being transparent and accountable to everybody. And I think when you start at the top of an organization, it breeds it amongst everybody else. I'm very open. I want to learn everybody's communication style. I know that in the organization we're going to have folks that are similar to me, very outgoing, very approachable. You can walk in the door and have a conversation with them. I also know that we're going to have folks that aren't as likely to speak up during a room full of people, and maybe their ideas aren't being brought to the table, and I want to make sure that we're not missing out on their ideas. So to find that out, and then find whatever mode of communication works for them. I am very flexible. I like to tell that as a sort of brand that I bring forth, is my flexibility. I'm flexible in the way that I operate, whether it's personality-wise, whether where you need me to be. This role is a 24/7 job, and I'm responsible not only for the response to the select board, but also to the residents. And it's a big job, and you got to get along with a lot of different personalities. And the way I do that is you don't get too high, you don't get too low, you stay very even-keeled and very calm. You'll probably never hear me yell. It's not worth my time and energy to yell. It's just the energy is too much to be expended. I like to talk through things, I like to communicate, because I believe in every situation there is a middle ground that we can come to and agree to, and then work out from there.
So in your research, you've probably seen we have about a $31 million budget. Just budget experience, how big of a budget have you worked on? How familiar are you with the budgeting process at the municipal level?
Yeah, so I've been involved with budgets from almost every angle except from being the person responsible for the budget. So I've sat on a finance committee in the town of Bourne for 18 months. I was actually going to be probably named the chair until I moved to the town of Falmouth. I had put myself up for the chair. So line item budgeting, going through the budget, viewing it from a perspective of an appointed official at the town level, looking at the departments, making sure spending's in line, looking at certain account lines and highlighting them if you see an irregularity. And then obviously with department level budgeting, I'm very keen at that because I've been doing that probably since the beginning of my career in Mashpee, which was back in 2004. So when we're talking about fixed spending versus, our salaries, our health insurance, everything else, we have fixed costs that we know we're going to have to apply, and then we have our discretionary costs. I think the biggest thing lately for me has been the MMA Suffolk course, the leadership, because we did a lot of repetitions through budgeting. Part of that class was actually bringing projects to town meeting floor in a mock setting and doing budgets. We had to develop our own budget where we had to, in one situation, it was told that revenues would be down, for instance, 10% across the board, and then we had to make cuts elsewhere in the budget to make sure that the budget matched overall. It's state law that you have to have a balanced budget. So that, I know that for a fact as well. And you know, budgeting is all about forecasting, working with your team of experts that help you forecast, and then making the puzzle fit together. The only thing I really haven't done, because I've been asked to forecast on energy prices, I've been asked to forecast on items that we're bringing into the fleet and for shelf life and, you know, usable life. So we're forecasting out 5 to 10 years in a lot of cases, especially on the vehicle end. And buildings for sure, you're looking at 15 to 20 years and even 30 years down the road. But then realizing those fixed costs, putting them in your budget, and then if you have to, you got to tighten the belt with discretionary costs. There's going to be a lot of that in this state moving forward over the next couple of years. But I'm pretty comfortable with my ability to budget, and I have a lot of potential to get innovative with it because, like I said before, I'm an avid learner. I have a voracious appetite for this stuff. For instance, like in class, we were talking about the various options that, various override options that certain communities use moving forward into tough situations like we're going to be facing in fiscal year 27. There was one community that does an override annually just to address their CBA agreements. And it's an annual thing, and they do that by practice. You know, there's other towns that have described, you know, maybe taking out the Proposition 2.5 and asking for an override that's a little bit larger and not collecting the full outlay for that, and then staggering that tax cost. So the hit isn't as big on the taxpayers in town, so you stagger that cost, and you make them, and obviously with that, you'd have to have a huge educational campaign, not only, you know, with the select board and the FinCom to explain everything out. We'd have listening sessions, we'd have meetings at the Council on Aging to you know, and there are different crowds that obviously this applies to, because there's different pressures in our different crowds. You know, we have elderly folks that are on very fixed costs, so it's going to impact them differently. We have families that have kids in the school system. We know that school costs, whether it's transportation or special education, are rising through the roof at a rate that, you know, many people don't know how we're going to cap them and what we're going to do with them. So those pressures are all alive and well, and I've seen them at the very large scale, especially in a place like Norwood, where the budget surpasses $200 million. You know, right now, as far as budgeting projects, my projects, I manage 10 large infrastructure solar projects currently in the town of Sharon. I was actually going over them today. I would estimate one of their values, it's going to end up netting the town about $600,000 annually per year. It's a 6.3 megawatt facility. That facility alone might be worth $31 million. So the numbers don't scare me. I'm very confident I can learn the numbers. I'm very confident I can get together with the team here to manage $31 million. Because I believe probably right now, if I were to break it down, I probably am overseeing that much in asset management right now.
And then to dovetail that, Stephen, we have 5 of our 6 unions up this year. Union negotiation experience, I guess.
Yeah. So that's a big one that I gained in Middleborough. And I believe you did speak to my HR director down in Middleborough, Allison Ferreira, who's great. So my involvement in Middleborough was prepping a lot of, so the town manager had requested actually binders to be built for everyone that was present at the negotiating table so that everyone could be on the same page, which I think was an effective approach. So we built these binders. I helped build the binders that had all the contracts in them. We had all the pay tables in them. And then, you know, a lot of the negotiations, from my view of it and the way I participated, was in the legwork that we did with the stewards and the union representatives, and doing a lot of the work before you actually get to the table. And then when you're at the table, hopefully you only have a couple issues left. In Middleborough, I wasn't physically in the room, but I was responsible with with the portions of the finance team to do all the pay tables and adjust them as, numbers came out of the room, say, well, they want this, can we get that priced out? And then I also helped with the note breakdown after those bargaining sessions to sit down not only with Allison to break down what happened during the sessions and debrief, but to also get town council, legal counsel on the line for negotiation purposes and say, what can we do here if we offer this and whatnot. So, coordinating with legal counsel to make sure we're in compliance with all bargain agreements.
Great.
And you do have quite a number. I mean, I think we did 3 during that one cycle. So 5 is a little bit bigger, but then again, the size of the unions themselves are a little bit bigger in Middleborough. So
Sure.
I would imagine the scalability is a little bit different.
Yep.
Let me ask you a question about your, certainly understanding budgeting and assembling the budgets, obviously the largest part of managing fiscal condition. Filling in gaps is another is another part of fiscal management, and that applies specifically to your experience getting grants and managing grants.
Yeah.
Can you speak to us about that?
Yeah, I mean, grants have kind of been my life for the last 20 months, and then when in the role in Bridgewater, I was heavily responsible for grants. You guys might be familiar with the High Street Dam project that was recently done in Bridgewater, where they took the impoundment and they let all the water go down naturally through the bridge. They removed the bridge that was there. They fixed the fish ladder that was next to it. I think all said and done, it was about an $8.2 million project. I was a main assist on one of the grants for about $4 million through NOAA. I tell this story because of the application process. We got a little innovative with it. We brought in a drone to actually capture the river from just a different perspective, and it really ended up being what the awarding committee said was above and beyond. Showed them that this was a project that was highlighted because of that. So that's just during the application process. Currently, this last fiscal year, I've landed 500 to 181 and 250. So I'm up right around $1 million this year. They're all related to EV. And HVAC and building green communities mainly, DOER. So the nice thing about DOER is they allow you to use a lot of preferred vendor contracts, so you don't have to go through all the procurement. But still, I know I'm an MCPPO, so I can still do that. But so for the HVAC and building automation system control projects that we did down in Sharon, that was a $181,000 project. It ended up being about $14,000 savings annually. So eventually it will pay itself off in about 10 years on the incentives and everything else, but then should save us more money moving forward. And what that did was it coordinated all the controls in the building so that we could remotely shut down the building to unoccupied status, which is a huge energy savings during particularly hot days. We can just put the building on unoccupied if there's no kids in it or minimal staff, and you can save during these high demand events upwards of $2,000 to $3,000 per event depending on the size of the building. So grant administration through Green Communities, Jane Pfister at DOER, final reporting on the grants, doing all the prevailing wage sheets during the actual grant process and the project process, and managing the project at the same time. And then I just had the final report shipped in at the end of November, and we're good to go. So we are open for the springtime to get our next project, which will be phase 2 at Heights Elementary School, and we will be finishing off the HVAC and building automation controls in that building. And then the other one, which is related to EV chargers, was a grant that I landed through the Mass Center for Clean Energy, which is tied to curbside charging. So this was a $500,000 grant that was awarded to the town of Norwood, which would cover all the planning, permitting, equipment, and labor for chargers to be placed curbside in town. And so we kicked off that project in April. The project was not to exceed $500,000. We're probably going to be at about $400,000. We don't get the kickback from it, but we ran under budget. We were able to run under budget. And we should be doing press releases and commissioning. I should be commissioning those chargers by the end of this month. So it was a pretty fast timeline to turn a grant from April and complete it out and then have the final reporting done probably by January. So less than a year, I will have turned that one around. And then the final one that I'm waiting on is $250,000 from Green Communities currently. I'm pretty sure we're a very good candidate based on my conversations with the Green Communities Coordinator. This is all prescriptive measures through Green Communities, so a lot of building insulation, wall, ceiling, cracks, stuff like that. 14 mini projects across the town of Norwood facilities, amounting to $250,000. Some of them are in environmental justice communities, some of them are not. They get a little bit more value for that based on the dollar. And what's going to happen there is they will come in, we're estimating savings per year annually to be about $29,000 in energy costs annually. So, and that's fully funded through Green Communities. And now I do know that Halifax is not in compliance with the MBTA zoning issues. So some grants may not be available to the town. And I have read that even Green Communities was pulled back recently, I think even last year. So I've put in a ton of research. So I would probably be poking around to see which funding opportunities are still viable and see which ones aren't, focus on those. One thing I will say about grants is they aren't necessarily always the answer because sometimes the administrative cost and the actual work cost outweighs the value in the money. And we always have to, I mean, we had a discussion, I recently had a discussion with the town administrator in Sharon talking about climate leader status, which is the next level of Green Communities. It's what they're effectively calling Green Communities 2.0. I've got the town of Sharon right there at the finish line. And you know, we're having this big discussion at the state level about energy costs, and if we're forcing all these communities to go decarbonization and high electric use, you know, maybe you are in a better boat if you have a lot of natural gas powered stuff. And the push on decarbonization might be peeled back a little bit. So those are some of the conversations that we need to have moving forward about if these grants are worth it or not.
You did mention that you are MCPPO certified.
Yes.
Okay, because the town really looks at the town administrator here to be very much hands-on with regards to procurement.
Yeah, Chief Procurement Officer.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So
Yep.
there's nobody else here to
Yeah,
take on
of course.
that task. You mentioned your HR experience. We've talked about the collective bargaining. You know, what's the manner in which you would go about holding employees accountable, if you will, and motivating and then holding employees accountable and then evaluating them accordingly?
Yeah, so performance evaluation, yeah, and then sort of discipline. Middleborough taught me quite a bit. I mean, we had some situations that, you know, you don't necessarily, I mean, on the grand scale, you kind of look at them and you go, that's kind of crappy, the way that turned out. But precedent setting is very dangerous. I mean, we had an individual that unfortunately misused some paid time off. And if they had just kind of been quiet at their desk, they probably would have gotten away with it. They happened to mention it to a coworker, and because of the fact that they mentioned it to a coworker, it was overheard. We had to kind of track it down, and at the end of the day, yeah, someone's got to be held accountable, because if one person does it, then everyone is potentially going to start doing it. And again, it gets back to my comment of starting accountability at the top. I mean, my staff's not going to be doing anything that I wouldn't be doing. You know, that's where I sort of draw the line. You know, I'm going to live by the same standards that they are, and the same policies and the same personnel policies that they are. So if I'm going to be held accountable to them, then I would expect the staff to be, at least to be held accountable to them too. And again, it gets back to the whole conversation. You're going to run into some tough situations in that gambit. And you just want to try to make them as pleasant as possible. I don't know. I know pleasant's not the best word, but as non-conflict as possible. You know, you don't want any anger. You want to try to leave the bridges intact. And then moving on to, what did you say beyond the accountability?
Motivating.
Oh, motivating. Thank you. So motivationally, this is kind of interesting. A lot of people, I played a lot of sports growing up. Motivation, I put a lot of motivation in the team. I like to be part of the team. I even think in the role of town administrator, I would come in and be a team player, much like, you know, a quarterback or someone who is simply really just there. Their only responsibility is to make sure things get done. I'm not better than. I'll tell everyone and anyone that, and it's all about conversation and communication. You know, I have a pretty motivating story, I've been told. I like to use it a lot. because a lot of people see what I've been able to accomplish, and they find a lot of motivation in that. Besides that, I just try to be very even-keeled, and I try to remain positive, because positivity ends up just ruining the day at the end. You know, if you're constantly walking around negative, then everyone's going to be pretty negative. And if it's a happy place, it's all about culture, right? I think we've all seen a certain football team change totally from one year to the next, simply because of the accountability and transparency and culture that was brought in. And it really is a culture of accountability. It's just about staying in your lane and doing your job, you know?
Can you talk to us about, how you would go about improving customer service, citizen responsiveness, transparency of operations? What ideas, what experience do you have in those areas, and what ideas would you have?
Yeah, so in Middleborough, one of the things I was responsible for as far as citizen awareness and getting out to I see myself as being a very upfront town administrator. I'm very available to the public and very transparent with the public, and I think that's one of the big pieces, is if you are with the public and available to the public, you are transparent, because they see what you're doing and they know what you're doing. I'm also the type of person that's probably going to be here a lot more than the standard, Monday through Thursday operating hours. This is a 24/7 an hour, 24/7 a week position. People will see it through my actions, and then I think the citizens will see it through my actions. And then moving forward, I want to show people that. And in Middleborough, what I did was I created their first newsletter. It's morphed into something that's really great. The other thing I would do is follow up on what Cody did so well, like Cody's Corner for informational stuff. I did something similar to that in Sharon recently, where we just installed 2 new fast chargers. We did a 30-second hit piece on it with Sharon TV. Came out great. It drove up the amount of calls that I was getting, and I'm not even really a resident-facing employee at this time. So in that regard, I love bringing the citizenry out to the public, to town hall, through newsletters, through engagement, through social media. I know social media can be a little tricky these days, but you pick your spots. And, I know that recently John Guilfoyle, their service, recognized Middleborough's newsletter as one of the better ones, and I kind of put a feather in my cap, because John Guilfoyle is known as a very, very good public relations firm, and they recognized that newsletter, and I was like, hey, I started that in the beginning of 2023. So I'm all about getting out there, being public, and getting the message out there, and answering questions, and being with the citizens and along with the select board.
You had mentioned the...
No, go ahead. Go.
You had mentioned about the position being 24/7, and it very much is.
Yeah.
You currently reside in
Falmouth. Yep.
Do you see any issues related to your current location and being able to be here and on the job?
Be here Monday through Friday, especially at the beginning. I would be here Monday through Friday, quite a bit, because I know I would have to hit the ground running. There's matters here in town that need immediate attention before town meeting in April, May. So I would be here a lot. And 35-minute drive. When I lived in Halifax, I used to commute to New York and Pennsylvania via car.
Not daily.
So, yeah, that day. Yeah.
Daily.
On some instances, daily, yeah.
Wow.
That was private electric and gas transmission line work. They didn't care what the mileage was. They just said, go ahead and do
Go
it.
do it. Wow. And that was, and to dovetail on what Bernie said, most of our town administrators are available for if CBA needs them, if planning needs them, if FinCom needs them. I know like Cody would zoom in, the Zoom is an option as well, but that availability you don't foresee as an issue.
No, and I don't prefer the Zoom format. You'd see me here in person. I'm one of them older millennials that is an 82 kid, so I grew up before the age of cell phones. I prefer person-to-person contact, and when I was introduced to local government, it was still very much person-to-person. Yeah, there's some advantages to it, especially in my current role, being an hour away. but 35 minutes, that's quite a difference. I mean, that's a drive I don't mind doing because, like I said, I'm a voracious learner and I have a voracious appetite for anything learning, and podcasts are just such a great invention these days, especially with the MMA, just firing up a new podcast to listen to.
Relationship with the board. What does that look like?
Relationship with the board. Yeah, I described that a little bit earlier. I serve the board as a body. Depending on how flexible you guys want to meet with me, it'd be equal time. I'm not hiding information from other select board members. Like I said, the only difference would probably be with the chair, who's arranging agendas, and through the executive assistant, and then potentially logistics. But other than that, it would be equal time, open door policy, especially for the select board members. And then any emergency calls, 24/7 phone access. I mean, that's sort of the relationship I see. That's the relationship I saw at Middleborough with Jay McGrail. That's what he practices. I see the relationships with the current two managers I work with Fred Turkington and Tony Mizuko, and how they operate. I've gotten to see a lot of high-end managers operate, and that's how they operate. So I plan on doing pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, the question I've asked the other two candidates as well, and it's about being able to pivot and be light on your feet.
Yeah.
The quote that I like to use is, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yep.
So can you give us an example of where it caught you a little bit unawares, as things didn't go as you foreseen, and how you were able to work your way around that to get to a resolution that you like?
Yeah, I mean, okay. Yeah, I can go back to the project I'm sort of working on now. We ran into some hurdles recently. So on the Mass CEC grant for the curbside chargers, up front, I had put out contact to all departments. In an organization that size, sometimes contact gets a little lost in the channels. So when we were actually doing the work with the vendor, we had an open sidewalk at one point, which turned into a mini emergency because the DPW director was basically saying, we're going to get sued because some kid's going to fall in this, open sidewalk, and we're going to have massive problems. Also, at that same time, a situation arose where one charger was planned to be too close to the intersection. We quickly had to delete that. We had to close up the sidewalk. I was in Falmouth at the time, and to talk about agility and how flexible I am, I was in Falmouth. It was about 10 in the morning, and the DPW director, who also resides in Falmouth, but drives up every day, asked if I could be on site that day, and I was on site that day. My main job, and something I didn't mention when talking about the select board, is to make sure there's no surprises for you guys. That's one of the main components of the town administrator job, is no surprises. So if it's a surprise to me, that's one thing. I could be agile on my feet, quick to respond, here, deal with an emergency, and then report to you guys based on how it went down, and then debrief and whatnot. But getting back to this project, so I was on site, we closed up the sidewalk, we capped that conduit, we removed that last station quickly on the fly. Then we also had to plan new curb cuts because the DPW got involved at a little bit later over time, so we had curb cutting that was granite that was placed in probably the 1930s, and we didn't know if we were going to be able to replace this particular granite again, because we didn't know if we'd be able to get it. Yeah. But then we were able to get a little bit more flexible, understood that the library, found out through some more research, the library doesn't actually have the DPW do their sidewalks, so we avoided that. The planning went down fine for that, didn't change the project cost. And then what it also did was it turned a potential opportunity for the town to actually make a little bit of revenue off of it, because we were able to invoice out the DPW work to the actual internal DPW through the vendor. Mm-hmm. So quickly we turned what was a little bit of a laundry list popping up into a really positive situation.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Guys, any questions
I mean,
for Stephen?
you touched a couple of mine were stolen, but you've already addressed them. Could you just retouch on, what you said earlier, and you kind of brought this up unprompted, but I think one of the things that's important in town is a steady hand and maybe like not a commitment, but a long-term vision. You mentioned that you wouldn't view Halifax or this opportunity as a stepping stone. So where do you see yourself in 5? I know you've kind of not jumped around, but dealt with a lot of different buckets.
Yep.
What's the plan? 5, 10 years? What's
So what you see on my resume is exactly what was it? My 13-year-old asked me the other day. She's like, "Well, you switch a job every 2 years." Right now, that's part of the plan, is to get to this level. What I see with Halifax is a minimum of probably 5 years, because attached to the Halifax, mainly the title, for this purpose, the purpose I'll talk about, is the ICMA Credential Manager credential. It takes 7 years to get, and it takes 7 years with the title of town administrator or deputy town administrator, or you got to have one of those two titles. And that becomes a very valuable credential moving forward. It takes 7 years to get, unless you take classwork, that you can get it down to 5. As you guys can see on my resume, I'm very interested in continuing my education and continuing my professional development. So that's why I've directly attached not only that, but also probably chasing an MBA as well. And because I will have probably half of it done, because I've already finished the MPA, and then I'd be able to add the actual business sense. When I was doing my MPA, I audited several financial classes simply because I wanted more knowledge on it. And they ended up being more privatized than I liked, but it gave me some financial knowledge into debt analysis and whatnot. So it wasn't totally fruitless. But I see a minimum of 5 years because that credential means so much to me. Because that credential would then make it so that later in life, when I'm in maybe, so that'd be 5 years, I'd be just about 50. Maybe into my mid-50s, I'd be able to probably retire down south because that credential carries. And who knows? I mean, like I said, my wife was already looking at homes in Halifax. She's, one thing that keeps popping out to me, we were here on Saturday at the holidays in Halifax. We decided to come up. I remember bringing my oldest daughter there in 2012. So I came back in 2025 with my youngest, my 4-year-old, and just had a blast. We took a picture by the ice sculptures, and my 4-year-old's favorite is the Grinch. So when the Grinch was on the couch over there and she was getting pictures, she had a blast. And the one thing my wife really commented on was we were sitting eating barbecue from one of the food vendors, the food trucks out there, and several people saw the food, stopped and asked us, "Boy, where'd you get that from? It smells really good." And you don't hear those, you don't have people walking up to you in general in Massachusetts that often. I mean, we both grew up on the Cape. We don't get that experience on the Cape. I went to Clemson University. The last time I saw people just randomly walk up to me and ask me about my barbecue was when I was in Clemson, South Carolina. So that's the type of people that are here. And I really appreciate that. And my wife appreciates it. And, I wouldn't count it out that, 5 years to 7, maybe 10, depending on how things go. You do see jumping, but the jumping has been predicated on the fact that this has been my goal, this role. And when I say fit, when I saw Halifax come open this summer, one of the first calls I placed was to Cody Haddad. And I spoke to Cody at length over the summer. I spoke to Cody a couple weeks ago. I saw Cody at ICMA down in Tampa back last month, and we've been talking about Halifax, and he was pretty much giving me an idea of what the town's about, and he enjoyed it. He really enjoyed his time here. And I think he righted the ship in a lot of ways, and he set some good things in motion, and I want to really carry those on and carry those forward. And I think I could provide the same steady hand he did, because I see a lot of similarities after, we've had a lot of conversations and I've got to know him pretty well. I do a lot of research. People will probably tell you I'm always over-prepared. I do a lot of preparing. I mean, if you ask my wife how much I prepared for this role and this interview tonight, she will give you the truth.
I just have one quick follow-up. Jonathan might want to touch on town meeting. I don't know when to say your question.
That was my last one.
If and when it works out for this to be offered to you, what does the start date look like? Because we have a short amount of time until town meeting. hit the ground running with a couple different issues?
Yeah, so I mean, my employers in both towns I work in now are well aware of the situation. I do have to check in on one of the towns on how much notice would be required. But it really boils down to whether it be 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 at the most, because I do have some large-scale projects that I would need to transfer over to hands that could complete them. But I could tell you that I have a lot of support. I think you probably saw that in my references. People know, people have told me I'm rising in this industry, and I try to be humble and stuff about it. But I've been at this for a long time. I've been trying to break this door down for a long time. And Halifax came open, and I saw it as a great fit, and the timing couldn't be more perfect. So I would say if today is the 5th, today's the 17th, I mean, if it's offered and we get negotiations done very quickly, I could be here prior to February 1.
Bill, did you have one?
Yeah, just one thing. Can you give me an example of a situation we had conflict resolution?
Sure.
How you solve the problem?
Yeah, I mean, early in my career, when I first started my career, I started out in permitting and enforcement. So on the customer service side and actually reaching out to residents, there was a lot of conflict. But I gained a reputation very quickly of being very good to work with, but still getting the job done from the town's perspective. My view on conflict and conflict resolution, it's not that I invite it, but I'm not afraid of it. I think conflict brings out a lot of truth, and I think if you're able to remain calm and steady during those processes, you can find out a lot of information about what's truly going on. So I had a number of cases with enforcement that would become conflict, and you're issuing fines and citations against folks, and they come in yelling and screaming, and you want to always, from this side of the table and being the town, my role is to remain calm and collected and to, hear the person out, hear the board member out, hear the citizen out, hear the select board member out, and then try to find that common ground and meet again. I have a pretty good track record of getting along with a lot of people. It's tough to think about conflict situations. I did have one in Bridgewater where there was a disagreement on sort of the way a permit was being handled, and the ultimate decision was to pull me off that one case because it was just too intertwined. No harm, no foul in my book. Other officials handled it. A lot of people thought maybe I would take it personally or something, but no, there's no personal stake in that. They were not going to be able to get to a good place with me, so they said we should probably remove you from the situation. I said that's fine. Let me know if I can help. But other than that, most of the time I will be at the table just trying to discuss and actively listening. Part of my self-awareness and redevelopment of myself was becoming a very good active listener, taking the cotton out of my ears and putting it in my mouth. And that's what sort of guided me for the last almost 10 years. So.
I know we're running a little tight on time, Stephen, but just quickly, huge part of the town administrator's responsibility is town meeting.
Yeah.
I don't know if you attended them while you were here in Halifax, but it's a huge undertaking, getting the warrant ready,
Yep.
making sure that all of our stuff is concise, easily explainable,
Yep.
orderly, and able to reach the masses.
Mm-hmm.
How comfortable are you with handling that responsibility, and any insights on what your approach would be for town meeting?
Yeah, so I'm very involved. I've been pretty much involved. So in Bridgewater, we didn't have town meeting. It's a town council form of government. But in Middleborough, I burst onto the scene, and we were right into April town meeting. I was responsible for setting up all the PowerPoints, responsible for collaborating with the school staff to make sure the room and the auditorium was ready. There is a lot that goes into town meeting, so doing that, making sure, proofreading all the warrants and the articles, making sure the language is right, sitting with the town manager, physically going through the warrant with the FinCom representatives and the accountant and CFO. And then in Falmouth, where I am I'm actually a member of representative town meeting, and I sit on a number of boards and committees. I'm very involved in formulating articles, putting, the precinct meetings together. I'm very involved in my precinct. Town meeting for me is not a challenge this year. I participated in 6 last year, I think, or it's this year, between the last 18 months, because between Norwood, Sharon, and then in Falmouth, I did them all in various angles. Middleborough's the same way. When I was in Halifax, I attended a town meeting twice. I did watch the entirety of the most recent town meeting on Monday night, the 3 hours and 42 minutes. So it was interesting. You've got some water issues, which is another forte of mine. I've got a lot of experience in water, just to add that last little caveat. But town meeting, I'm very comfortable in town meeting. I love town meeting. And my role as town administrator would be basically there to be the point of reference for any, clarifications. And what's on the warrant, what does this mean, what's the impact, those types of questions. But very comfortable.
Great.
I think the board probably has time for one question,
One question?
if you have any.
I do.
He's looking for his best one.
Yeah, I had 3. I'll go with this one. What would you want to feel more confident about 6 months from now if I were in this role?
Good question.
That is a good question.
What would we want to feel more confident in?
Yep. What would you want to feel more confident about 6 months from now if I were in this role?
A balanced budget.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the board, but the budget is the big elephant in the room.
And the sustainability of that budget. I mean, we could solve it in April and May, terrific, but how does that look, FY 27, 8, and 9, moving forward?
Yeah, and those
the sustainability of whatever is.
And those are
from me.
Yeah, we're in agreement.
And I think the MMA is doing a lot of work right now with their forecasting models, and I think they're going to be very helpful over the next couple of years. But building in that extra capacity is certainly an option. There's a lot of options I'd love to talk to the FinCom with, and the accounting staff in town, the treasurer and whatnot, the finance team. But the budget, I'm pretty confident we can get there.
That was quick. I'll take a bonus question. Another one?
Yeah. What do you see as the biggest organizational challenge for staff right now?
I'll be honest, Stephen, being competitive. We have the staff here I would put on par with any town in this community, in this area.
Sure.
We have great people here. But it's a challenge to maintain and retain people because of the financial struggles we have.
Constraints, resources.
I know, in a community, you don't want to be paying the most in an area. You don't want to be paying the least. You want to kind of be right there in the middle. And we did, while Cody was here, did do a compensation and classification study to try to help us out to get closer to the middle. But that would be one of the biggest challenges is maintaining the great people. And if you were to get this position, you'll see we have an amazing staff here. So maintaining those folks would be vital for me.
retention. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good by me.
Yep.
All right. Stephen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, and
Thanks,
Stephen, just so
Stephen.
you know, we look to make a decision this evening.
Okay, great.
All right, so we'll let you know.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, yep. Nice to meet you. Thanks again.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Nice to meet you.
5 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick 5-minute bathroom break. I know I could use it. So we will, yes, we will rejoin here. What is it, 48? So 8:53 we will rejoin. Okay, 8:53 we'll rejoin. All right. So it's 8:53. We're going to reopen here the Board of Selectmen meeting. I'll start first by saying fantastic work by our screening committee and by Mr. Lynch over here. I think all 3 of those candidates that we saw this evening were very qualified, very hungry, knowledgeable, ready to roll up sleeves and try and do the best job they can for Halifax. So I think this will be one of the hardest decisions I've had to make since being a selectman here in Halifax, because I truly feel like all 3 of those are solid choices. I don't know if we want to get into strengths and weaknesses or of both or of all of them or where we see it, but again, it's going to be really difficult to pick out of those three. Thoughts, guys, just in general terms?
Yeah, general terms, without getting into strengths or making a selection of any kind for me, I think I would echo your sentiment to the screening committee for presenting three very qualified candidates. I thought each did have a very different strength versus the other two. It's just a matter of which we weigh out more. I have been consistent in my mind and also out loud that, you know, we all hope the best for this position in terms of the, you know, what they will bring to Halifax. My sincere hope is that whoever is selected will see out at least one and entertain a second contract. I would prefer not to be back here in 12, 18, 24 months. I know that's impossible for us to predict or for any candidate to guarantee, but in my mind, some stability, an even-keeled attitude, and not a long-term, but a commitment to the town is important to me. I would honestly be disappointed if we're back here in any short-term future doing the same thing.
As would I. As would I. Bill, the overall thoughts?
I agree with that. I think each candidate had high rankings in some categories and low rankings. I think our biggest problem right now in the facing the town is the budget, and I would lean more to the candidate that could take that problem on and tackle it and move us forward. So that'd be my main goal.
I agree. I do feel like financial acumen is probably priority number one, in my opinion, just based on the year and possibly a couple of years that we're going to be facing here. So I will say I thought David's financial background was very strong, as did I thought Stevens as well. Man.
If you're...
Yeah, go ahead.
Pause there.
Yeah.
I thought David, I liked his business background. It seemed like it seemed as if he had a conservative outlook on budgeting. His business acumen, his business owner, I like that analogy. For Justin, he seemed innovative. He seemed like he would be able to, he had energy. He also, of the three, had the strongest history in municipal government in terms of the number of things that he has contributed to or been a part of. And then in Stephen, I like the technology aspect. I like the fact that, in my opinion, this would be coming home for him. I thought that was, a nice tidbit. I also thought that the fact that he's MCPPO, where the other two were not, is a contributing factor. So I did see benefit to all three.
Yep. And just a little note, Cody was an MCPPO, I believe, when he started here as well. Right. So it was quickly able to get that. So I agree, it's nice for them to have it. Not necessarily a deal breaker, if you felt strongly about one of these three candidates. Again, this is hard. And I know there's some distance with location as to where these folks are and where they're coming in. I will say the longest tenured and our first town administrator here in Halifax didn't live in the state of Massachusetts. So Charlie. So I don't think, again, that is a deal breaker as well. The ride can be a little bit longer, but that's doable. If somebody's committed and willing to make that commitment to Halifax, I think. Yeah,
that's okay. I agree. And I thought that all three had good answers to that question. Stephen wouldn't have as long as a commute as he has. Justin had prepared to step down from certain things and accommodate his personal schedule to differentiate. And then David had, in his term, 3 phases of what that might look like should he be selected. So I thought that was appropriately answered by all.
And I just want to echo what Tom said. I'm really concerned about this being a stepping stone.
Sure.
To something bigger, because it is a small town. You get your feet wet, you get the experience. You haven't been a town administrator before. Now the next great thing that pops up, you're off and running.
Sure.
So that's...
Yeah, and I agree. And when I say long term, I don't expect anybody to reasonably understand or, want to forecast what their life looks like in 3 or 6 years. I would just hope that this is at least a 3-year commitment. I would love it if we loved the fit, the candidate who was selected loved the fit, and there was a mutual appetite for years 4 through 6. Yeah. That would be ideal. we shouldn't expect it from them, nor can they, predict how we'll
Sure.
feel. So when I say long-term, I don't mean double digits per se. I just mean a mutual appetite for more after 3.
I will say, and I agree with what both of you guys are saying, but I guess if the consolation prize of that is 2 or 3 really solid years. We had a guy that left that I think did a lot in his couple of years that he was here. Again, that's not ideal, but if the candidate comes in and knocks our socks off and really puts us on a path, I would love to have them here forever. But, if that is the consolation that we at least have that stability for that time, I'll take it. And again, unfortunately, it's a common theme in Halifax. We talked about it in our meetings tonight, retention. So I hope that, salary is always a bugaboo in this town as far as, we don't want to overpay our people, but we got to make sure that we're doing what we can to be in that middle ground to retain, good people. So, man,
It's tough.
this is super, super hard. I didn't think, I'll be honest, I was hoping there would be a candidate that was head and shoulders above the others.
What I was hoping for was one who was not, so it would come down to 2.
Yeah, easy to come down to 2, right? But truly, again, Bernie, I can't thank you enough. These are great candidates.
It's who can hit the ground running.
Right.
It has municipal experience. That's,
So just, I'll start, I guess. Just going by what we're looking for and the fit we're looking for, I think I'm leaning between David and Stephen. Again, because of their financial backgrounds with David and Stephen with his familiarity of Halifax. Again, no slight to Justin. He was fantastic, and I think he has a very bright future ahead of him as well. But just given what we need here at Halifax, I feel like maybe those 2 are slightly ahead of Justin in my book.
I would agree with that. I would put, I think, David a little ahead of Stephen with his budgeting experience and his management style, but
Are you in a spot yet, Tom? or-
Yeah, I mean, I could go, I don't want to say I could ride the fence, but I could go either way here. I honestly think that you probably couldn't go wrong. From a financial perspective, I think that David versus the other 2 is stronger.
I agree.
That might be his strongest attribute, where he might lack other, qualifications. I think Stephen perhaps would hit the ground running with the most gusto. I'm not sure it's perfect. Well, I don't think, well, with any of the 3, I don't think that we'd have to doubt the effort.
Correct.
With Justin, I go back that I really like his, breadth of experience in the FinCom, the Board of Selectmen, and the transformation to a town charter and town council. I mean, if I had a quick opinion and, forced to say, I would probably lean Stephen, because I feel like that might provide the most, bad analogy, bang for our buck early. He might be the hungriest of the 3, in my opinion. I don't think we can go wrong. Again, strictly from a financial aspect, I thought David might be the strongest with budgeting and conservative planning and so forth. But I could be convinced either way.
I think with David, it's more longevity than it would be with the other 2.
Yep.
Yep, and I think that might be true. I think you're, again, I hate, because you can't really say it like this, but you hope his 3-phase plan works out. Because I can see if that's not working out, that could be burnout quickly. Again, I would admit that as each candidate came in, I thought, oh, that could work. But then I remembered that we had 2 more, and other ones we'd already heard. So it's really a tough call. I think that the procurement thing, both David and Stephen have vast experience in that. I did, like I said, I like the financial background of David, having run his own business, the analogy to being the homeowner, to being the business owner, having had some HR experience. And then with Stephen, I just thought that, I wrote a note down, It was kind of like coming home for him, and I thought not that he would be more invested, but that he might take the opportunity personally to prove himself and be hungry to do that. He seems goal-oriented, not that the others weren't, but he seems like, if it's a 5 or 7 year commitment, to Jonathan's point, if we get 2 or 3 of his best ones on his path to something different, I might be okay with that if we saw the opportunity for a second contract. David indicated 10 plus years or 10 years or so, Justin the same. So my big concern with longevity and the opportunity to have a renewal contract was satisfied with all 3. So in that light, I'd be fine with any of them.
Time to flip a coin.
I know. What do we do, Lynch?
So at this point, if one of us was to make a motion,
Yeah.
and that motion was seconded by another member, it would then go to a vote.
Right.
And that would preclude a nomination or a movement to select either of the other 2. In other words, if I select candidate A, and Jonathan says second, but Bill says, I want to propose candidate B,
Yep.
and we can't get 2 seconds and vote on 2.
No, you
No,
gotta
but
vote
what
on
do
the
you,
first.
what, do you want me to, are you looking for me to give you a way out of that?
Well, I'm just, sure.
In your vast experience.
What have you seen happen?
What you could do, someone could make a motion to put the two names into nomination, and then you could have a roll call vote with each one of you choosing one of the 2. You could put all 3 names in and say,
So we could put all 3 names and have a roll call vote. If it was 1-1-1, we're back to the drawing board. If it's 2-1, we have our candidate. Is that correct?
Right.
All right, so maybe, Mr. Chair, I'll do what you think, but maybe rather than somebody speak first to nominate and put the pressure on the rest.
Sure.
Because if I nominate candidate A and it's a second and you wanted the other candidate, we aren't necessarily unified and don't have a process or a way forward unanimously.
Right.
Whereas if we nominate all 3 and do a roll call vote,
and then you could,
if we have 2-1, we have the.
you have the 2-1, then you can make it unanimous.
Do you want to do that and not be unified, though? I mean, I'd rather this be unified in a decision.
Again, we're splitting hairs, I truly feel like, with these candidates.
Yeah.
A reminder that Cody wasn't unanimous, I believe, right? Wasn't Cody 2-1 when he was
Yeah,
selected?
Right?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was
So-
2-1. So, yep,
There is precedent for being not unanimous.
I mean, they're all good.
yep.
It's not easy.
All right.
Yeah, I think the important thing, if I may,
Go ahead.
the important thing is whoever gets 2 votes,
Is the guy.
I would, and I think anyone watching this, any of the candidates that are watching this, one of them was chosen, they could tell that you're really wrestling with this,
Big time.
and that
Big time.
that it isn't it doesn't take away from them if someone voted for somebody else on a first round and then you switched over to make it as a sign of
Yep.
unanimity
Yep.
to do that,
Yep.
and so.
All right.
Give me one minute.
Yeah. Tom needs a little bit. I mean, woof. You guys ready? Do you need-
Reasonable,
Sure.
A lot of pressure. All right, so we're not doing this by candidate, we're doing this by entertaining a motion to put all 3 in the finalist category and do a roll call? Is that how we want to do it? Is that how you were saying, Bertie, the best? way to do it?
Someone could make a motion to that effect.
I just think that eliminates the downside of me nominating someone and getting a second, and maybe Jonathan didn't have the opportunity to nominate his person.
Right.
So I feel like that might be pressure if there's someone who goes first.
Right.
Right.
Whereas this way, everyone speaks their
Right,
vote.
right.
That would be, I would be fine
Yep.
with that if everyone else is
I agree.
agreeable. Do it right. Let's get it right the first time, Pam.
No, that's.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion. What's the motion you'd like to make?
I would make a motion to throw all 3 candidates, David Kader, Justin Pare, and Stephen Sobel Jr., all advance to the finalists and put it to a roll call vote.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimous.
So what's the order that we should take this in? The order of appearance tonight? Or does it go to like Jonathan, then me, then Bill? How does it work?
I would say that it would go, you could do it either way, but I would say go roll call of ask each individual board member who they would vote for.
Okay.
And you could do that alphabetically, you could do it across this way
or
you could
that
do
way.
and let the chair be the end, whatever.
I'll start.
You want to start, Bill? Go right ahead.
Oh, boy.
I'm just pulling up Bob sent me the verbiage.
For the final.
For
I
making
say
the
this
motion.
with saying that all three candidates are great candidates. We got to pick someone.
Background
So-
check.
Further background checks, that's what we did.
Yeah.
I'll say yay to Stephen.
All right, Tom?
My vote is also for Stephen.
Okay. He's right up there for me as well. So I will say yay for Stephen as well. So I think we have our candidate.
Now you need a motion to make sure that
Yeah,
you make.
so I will entertain a motion to offer the position of town administrator to Stephen Solwo, pending contract negotiations and all appropriate background checks.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Again, I'm sure candidates are probably watching. Fantastic job by all three of you. And the two that didn't get chosen, David and Justin, I wish you well. And, I sense a bright future for both of you as well. So thank you all for coming in. Bernie, anything to add? All right, so before
Thank you,
we
gentlemen.
adjourn, we are going to go into executive session to discuss, I'll read the announcement here. The board's going to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, excuse me, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel for the interim town administrator and town administrator positions.
So moved.
Second.
All right, this is a roll call vote. We will not be coming back into open session. We will be adjourning from executive session. Roll call vote. Bill Smith?
Yes.
Tom Pratt?
Yes.
Myself, Jonathan Seelig, is a yes. We are heading into executive session at 9:11 p.m. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great night.